What is going on, YouTube world? Steve, Dave, insert revolution podcast, broadcast, live, episode number 38.
Podcast, broadcast,
Same thing.
close enough.
It's the one half dozen of another.
Exactly.
And I know I'm spent. We'll still get vlog. That is correct, Bobby.
What's up, Bobby?
I know Steve's probably tired from work too, because again, I know you've mentioned you've had a little more in the line of your responsibilities now coming into play. So we'll go our probably the normal 3 hours, but I think after that everybody's gonna tap out because I told Steve in like we chat a little bit before going live. Uploaded an app for the phone, the step counter deal, and it chimed in as I was walking home today. Congratulations! It's like a little badge thing with 60. I'm like, 60 what? 60 miles in just like 9 days. I'm like, so great exercise, but it wears you out. And now Naomi's got baseball, and I've been last 2 nights helping with them since there's a lot of young kids in the team, and her and one of her classmates, and then I think there's one other one that's a little older, but it's a pretty big discrepancy. So trying to teach youngsters that are going into first grade for next year fundamentals, keeping attention. It's at least I've been the grounder. I've been the grounder machine so far. So it's like, but yeah, my shoulders are killing me, my back's killing me, my ankles and feet are just destroyed. Once you hit that 50, 40, it's. I thought the 31 was a misnomer. 35 is one that it hits you like a ton of bricks. 40's been just. It feels like I'm 70 in some days where I just do not want to move, or I can't move.
Well, it's pretty bad since you were already trying to move to 50 and we're just now a few years over the 40 mark. I can relate though. There are days in which it's not necessarily the work or the activity or the physicality of certain things. Not that I do a lot physically from a work perspective, but it's the lack of sleep. I know for my lack of sleep pales in comparison to yours just because of what time you get up in the morning. But, the nice thing about working from home, the kiddo going to school at home, my alarm clock goes off at 7:30. So, before school and everything else, having to take them, alarm clock was going off at 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been able to increase my amount of sleep. The only problem is I find myself sometimes staying up later. So there's times in which I'm still dog tired, and it's always pleasant when you have an 8 a.m. conference call. I just love those 8 a.m. conference calls because it's like, okay, I've barely had my first cup of coffee, and you seriously want me to pay attention and listen? No.
Yeah, there's no stretching. There's no hopping out of bed. There's no stretching. There's stretching in bed just to like get enough motivation to like tumble out of bed. There's times when I am struggling mightily. You'll do the stretching and then you'll feel something. You're like, oh, that's how we're gonna start the day. Okay. I haven't even gotten the covers off and we're already locked down. Like, okay.
And no, Bobby, there is nothing wrong with 50-ish, whether that be 52 or 58. That's not what we're saying by any stretch of the imagination, because in the blink of an eye, we'll be in that boat with the way things are moving these days. I mean, crap, we're already in May. And if you seriously think about it, what, 14 episodes we will have done this for a calendar year,
Mhm.
and it feels like we just started it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I still like the fact that we're going strong. I still like the fact that we have the following. You know, Carlos is still going strong on his Fridays. Like I always say, we touch on the topic, or we do our best to touch on topics for that's taken place over the past few days or whatnot. But then it's casual conversation, and you never know where the conversation is going to go, whether it be here with us or via the chat or on Friday nights. That's what makes this so much. I mean, it's so enjoyable, and I've said this many times. I look forward to Tuesdays. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I'm frustrated. Sometimes I had a crappy day. But sitting here, hanging out with you guys, having conversations, talking about things that we enjoy, that we connect over, it puts every negative aspect to the side, at least for, the 3.5 hours that we spend, having the show. So I hope we keep going. Dave, I don't know about you. I don't foresee us planning on, tapping the brakes anytime soon. We
No.
always talk about expanding the content, which, that's still kind of in the works, guys. With baseball starting for Naomi and, school still being heavy, at least in our house. It's one of those in which it's very hard for Dave and I to connect and prepare what we want to, and then of course do what we need to record the content. So it's not that we don't want to get there. It's not that we don't want to do it. Right now, life is definitely getting in the way,
Yes.
and it may still be a few months from now. But the plan is, at least outside of the weekly show, is to have at least one standalone video a month. That may change. But we've already got one planned, as far as the name, what we're going to do, things along those lines. And to a certain degree, we kind of already have like a top five, even though we really haven't discussed a top five. You and I are pretty much on the same page as far as what we want to cover. So that will come at some point. We do hope it, adds value to those who want the information and passing of the knowledge, because that's what it really is going to be founded on. So, like I said, it's something I'm looking forward to. David, I want to speak for you. Something that we've given a lot of thought about. It's just right now, it's now finding time, which, as of right now is going to prove very difficult. So it may be one of those in which come June, because summer, hopefully there'll be a little bit more opportunities for us to sync up, because it's not just syncing up and preparing. It's also syncing up and being able to record it. And making sure that we like what we present. So it could be one of those in which there may be a few takes. And hell, we may even throw some of the outtakes at the end or the beginning, who knows, just to add some additional context. Because, that's just what Dave and I do. But yeah.
And our sponsor tonight is Bud Light.
Before we get too far.
Yeah.
And I do have Coors Light. I do, but wife bought the Bud Light first, so I want to finish that up. And not to mention, my wife has decided to move back to beer, which is fine. No, not the horror. No. It's not going to be one of those. It'll be pre-recorded. It will not be a live broadcast. But good try, Bobby. But no, wife has decided that her wine's not tasting good and stuff along those lines. So she's decided to start drinking beer again, but we'll only drink Coors Light. Unlike me, I will go back and forth. So before long, it's probably going to be nothing but Coors Light. At least that's what I'm hoping for, but we'll see.
Yeah, what we've got planned, it's not something you can just sit there and throw together in one night. We want to have, and I hate to use the old adage of all our ducks in a row, but this is literally something where you have about the mother and like 6 ducklings. You want to have everybody teed up straight. So, and we've run it past, I think, Carlos and Bob, maybe Vinny. I don't remember.
Yes, Bobby. Bobby knows. I'm pretty sure Bobby knows. And hanging out in the after show on Carlos's show on a few occasions. Then again, Bobby is getting old. He alluded to that earlier. He may have already forgotten. So, sorry, Bobby.
Yeah, it's something that everybody seems to be receptive of, and I'm anxious to do it. It may seem, and I haven't put much out for like other videos lately. I've still got stuff coming in. I've got to make another video, but and it's not an excuse. I never use it as an excuse or a crutch, but I've got 6 days a week of work. I work Saturday mornings I'm up at 3:40 on Saturday mornings. That's why, and then same with Sunday. I have to get up depending where I'm at, about 5 or 10 to 3, or again 3:30, quarter to 4 for work Monday morning. So we've got time, but that time isn't always going to be predicated towards the content. I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear that or don't understand that. We both want to be of the right mind. That doesn't mean if we're boozed up or whatever. We just want to have the focus, like here, and I don't want it to come off sounding like we're reading off of a computer screen. When you do that, it just isn't. It isn't authentic. It's not something where people will even listen to it. Because if you sound like a robot or like the National Weather Service, like there's a tornado warning in Cobb County, Georgia. It's just like, whatever. It's rosy robots babbling away. Nobody cares. You want to hear that we're into what we're showing you, what we're discussing, what knowledge we are giving you, hopefully, and that you're retaining or doing whatever you want with. We just want it to be something that's, again, organic, not contrived, doesn't feel forced or doesn't feel like super pre-rehearsed. I mean, we'll look at some of the facts and some of what we want, because we want to make sure we are telling you and giving you the information correctly, so you don't come back or somebody doesn't come back, well, that's not what you said here. It's like, well, let's go back. Let's take a look at the tapes. No, that's what we said here. This is what it is. That's where we got the information from. So we may do more links in like the description to be like, okay, it's sort of like not like notate where you like do a report. Here's your sources. This is the source I got it from. Or we'll have something where you guys will all, and gals, whoever's watching, will all know what's what. It's not like we're just pulling stuff out of our butts like it usually seems like we're doing. At least me.
Agreed. No, agreed. So it is one of those. It'll be somewhat scripted, but not to the extent of where you can tell that it's scripted, because that's where, I think Dave and I and, Carlos and his guests, we're able to feed off of each other. No matter what the context, no matter what the conversation, everything feeds off of each individual interaction. So it needs to be organic, but at the same time, we still need to have like our ducks in a row, as Dave alluded to, as far as the bullet points, to make sure that we capture everything. We don't overlook something. We don't miss something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but we're both excited about it. Uh, Something that we haven't come across as far as the level of information that we're planning on conveying and providing, and we're hoping to do it on a monthly basis. So outside of the 3 to 4 live broadcasts that you get every month, there'll be that other standalone video to where we'll try and have it on a normal release schedule. And there's always the possibility that we may have to do multiple recordings over a few amount of days and pre-schedule them just to make sure that we have enough time to devote to getting those recorded, so to speak.
Yeah, and we're not going to go. Sweet spot would be 30 to 35 minutes. 45 if, depending on the depth of what we're discussing. So
Yep.
it'll all depend on the topic. But it won't be 3 hours. It'll be more something where you can sit down if you're choosing one, but no more than probably three, because you want to sort of keep that information relevant as we're discussing it. So, but it'll be shorter, much shorter. It won't. It'll probably be like one of my mail day videos. That's little like in that length anyway.
Well, and that's also one.
Not the last one, but most of them before.
Right. But that's why we've also been watching the time, because
Yeah.
at some point we will look to upgrade. So time won't be an issue, and hopefully by then we'll have some additional ideas and we'll expand to some additional other standalone videos. So that's the plan as it pertains to the future. I know that wasn't the topic of conversation, but it's one of those in which I did wanted to get it out there a little bit more in detail. We've alluded to it in past shows, but it kind of gives you a little bit more context. And we're hoping that everybody gets an opportunity to enjoy it as they start, happening. Of course, we're always looking for feedback, suggestions, things along those lines. But something to keep in mind, some of those suggestions may or may not come to fruition depending on what the ask is. And that'll make a lot more sense once we start putting those out.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to talk to this, both of us are, without giving away too much, because then it kind of defeats the purpose. Because, only a small handful of guys have kind of heard what the plan is. They know what the title is. And, we've gotten their feedback. So, not that y'all's isn't important. That's not what we're getting at, because we'll be counting on you guys to provide, subsequent feedback as well, and future suggestions. So, yeah. Enough about that topic. We can circle back now to the main focal point of the topic and look at that. Speaking of Carlos,
What's going on?
what's going on, my man?
Not too much. Not too much. I was listening in on the beginning of the thing, but I needed to give myself half an hour. Speaking of work, I stopped working about 35 minutes ago, so I was like, "All right, let me take a couple of minutes to chill out."
Oh, I can understand that. Need to wind down a little bit. No walking on the treadmill this evening for this week's show.
My treadmill came around midday once I realized that I would be working until 8 p.m. my time. Once I realized that was going to happen, it's like, all right, let me take a breather now while I can, because I'm going to be sitting there staring at the screen, burning my retinas out.
So stuff is picking up quite a bit, though, for you. I know you and I kind of talked about it a couple of weeks ago as it pertains to, stuff really kind of getting off the ground for you and in reference to projects and all that other kind of fun stuff. Is it really starting to kick into gear for you?
Well, what I was definitely starting to kick into gear a little bit, but then today was hilarious because I think somebody figured out what a calendar was. They're like, "Wait a minute, it's May." And then I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, we got all these programs that we have to make. And I go, uh-huh. And I go, so they created this big old spreadsheet. And I go, so you wanted me to do this one, right? No real set timeline, but you knew you needed it done. So I've been chipping away at it. And I go, so how many do you need me to do? We're gonna need you to do like 7. And I go, oh, I see. Well, thank you for letting me know. Every single one of those things is basically, and Vinny can relate. It's basically a big old spreadsheet that tells you how to build the thing from top, because somebody plans it out. You're the one who actually has to build it. So it's like, so it's, I used to live in the world that Dave lived in when I used to work in retail, 10-hour, 12-hour shifts on your feet. It's gone from physical work to mental work. It's not physically draining, it's mentally draining. By the time you're done, you're like, you don't even want to stare at it anymore. You're falling asleep staring at a monitor in your chair. And it's like, oh my God. You need to get some air when you can at that point. You need to physically get up, because it's the opposite. Where you run into a problem is if you don't get any steps in. It's like, yeah, 60 steps, not 60 miles, 60 steps, because you didn't leave your damn chair for the last 10 hours. That's not healthy. It's not good for you.
Well, and to readjust your eyes too. I mean, Jesus, you're looking at a screen and smaller font and letters and numbers the whole day, and trying to like, look around. And at some point, you got to get like the horizon where you can actually see something bigger than like a pencil eraser.
Well, eye strain's real, and that's the reason why, if you're smart, if you are working from home now, like some of us are, is that I have two 27-inch monitors that I use. So it's like, nope, I need a big monitor so that I can make the font nice and big, because I'm not straining because the laptop they give you, it's a 13-inch screen. So it's like, the font is like that. And I'm like, I'm not staring at that, man. No way. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I'll connect the monitor to it. We'll look at it on the monitor. Thank you.
When I traveled is on and off for a little over 5 years, I got used to using a laptop. Yeah. So that's all I use. I had an option to use a monitor in the office, and I'm like, screw this. I can't do this. I'm so used to working off of a laptop that I'm like, somebody else can use this monitor. But then again, that could have something to do with the fact that I can't read the back of cards usually 99% of the time.
Well, eye strain's real. It's real.
Yes. Yep. It is. I mean, my wife has 2 monitors like you do, Carlos. I haven't bothered to pay attention. I don't think they're 27-inch, but she works off of 2 monitors. Almost all my co-workers work off of 2 monitors, and then there's me working off of a laptop screen. Because it isn't that bad, Dave.
Yeah, I've done it for years, and the thing is, you can do it, but it's one of those things where if you do know I'm usually good, like kind of playing to Bobby's comment. I'm the guy who for years I was so good at building the stuff that I had to build. I wouldn't have to sit there for 10 hours. That wasn't my style. I'd sit there for 45 minutes, give it a good 45, go take a walk, go refill my drink, go do whatever. But because this stuff's new, I don't have the experience to be able to go back on it where I can just click everything and almost see it with my eyes closed. I'm not there yet. So everything is more deliberate. I have to pay attention to it. So it takes me longer. I have to work how the other half lives. Like my coworkers used to be, who had to sit there for 6 hours. Now I have to do that.
All in due time, Carlos. You'll get there.
Yeah. But I did. But once I saw that spreadsheet, I go where I went from 1 to 7 today. I was like, wow. Okay. It's like, so you're signing for overtime. And they're like, yeah. All right, then. Overtime it is.
Even better.
Well, that will possibly help with the card purchase, perhaps.
It'll help with a couple of things, Dave.
Well, I figured as much.
Yeah.
Have you connected with that seller?
Oh, the offer's out there, and there's a couple of hours left on it for today. I think they're sitting on until the last possible minute to see if there are any other offers. There haven't been. I gave him a very fair offer. I gave him a very fair offer for it, and I'll follow up with them if they don't pass along. I'll say, hey, look, that's the offer. If you want a little bit more, we can talk about it. But I did reach out, and they were kind of wishy-washy. They were like, well, I've got, you can use the best offer thing. It's like, I know I can use the best offer thing. There's a button. I was trying to gauge where you were. You clearly you're not dead set on this price, because that's the response you gave me. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did set a minimum threshold, so I went above that, so that's fine. I actually prefer if you're a seller on eBay, set the minimum threshold. If you don't want low ball offer, set whatever your minimum is so that it rejects. It'll throw it back and the message is as clear as day. But I think they're sitting there just trying to see if anybody else will come in and offer. It's like, no, my offer I think is fair. I think I made a fair offer for it. If I had to, I could do the damn buy it now, but I really don't want to.
Yeah. Not a like we've said before, if you can save some money
Yeah,
somewhere along the line, that helps.
yeah. It's
Then
not,
then when you make another purchase, you can be like, well, I saved it over here.
yeah, exactly.
Spend it over there.
Thanks, Jeremy. That's some great advice. It's like savings. It's like no, I think my preference would be I actually when it came across it, the part of the reason I was annoyed is of the timing of it. It's like I literally just that weekend I had already bought a couple of cars, nothing too crazy, but I had already picked up some nice pieces, and I was like, oh come on, guys, give me a break.
That's usually how it happens, though, Carlos.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I've got the money stashed away. That's the one good thing that's been with the new gig is that it does pay a little bit more, even without the overtime part. Now I will have the overtime part because I looked at that list of projects like, no, I'll be able to justify overtime. But the thing is that it's allowed me to stash aside some cash, so I've been able to kind of rebuild that little piece, and I'll probably will sell a couple of pieces to be honest with you, to have a little fund set, a little slush fund set aside because I've got plans for the summer. So I'd like to be able to do them and pick up a couple of cards here or there.
Nothing wrong with that. So it's interesting. So since we have this topic, and it's one of those in which I didn't know. I know who Dave, of course, sent the link to. So I had a feeling of who potentially could pop on here. So Dave and I can.
You're asking what happens if you don't have kids, Steve? You're asking what happens if you don't have kids?
Or anything in general, or what would your plans be in your specific situation? Because as of right now, you're not married, you have no children. There's no plans.
So I think the ancient Egyptians had it right. So what you do is you build the the entire thing to take it with you to the afterlife with the hieroglyphics on the wall. Speaking of your deeds. I think that's how you do it. No, I love the topic because I did think it was funny. That's why I particularly enjoyed clicking on the link. Plus, I wanted to hang out and chat. No, for me, it was I had a buddy ask me about that, like legitimately asked me that question, and I said, look, the truth is, I don't plan on being dead today or tomorrow, so I figure I hope to have a little bit of time to figure that out. But truthfully, I don't care. Once I'm dead, burn it, throw it in a wood chipper. Mike can have it for his bonfire. Enjoy. Take it all. I don't care because I can't take it with me. Egyptian jokes aside, I can't take it with me. So, and the point of the exercise, and I will give credit, Cardi C did a video the other day, and I think Dave saw it, a little bit of it. We were talking about it. The enjoyment is in the process. And for me, very much the process is a large part of the enjoyment. Physically having the cards is cool. But that's why sometimes it's kind of easy to be like, oh, this is a cool card, enjoy it for a little bit, and then it goes in the box and you're on to the next thing. It's almost devaluing the card, but it isn't. The journey was the overall picture that you're trying to create. So the thing is, after we leave the mortal coil, it's like, well, then I've done everything I could do. I'm out of time. I can't do any more. So if I got the enjoyment of it during the time period, then what happens to the physical items is of no consequence to me.
Any potential, looking to donate it to a cause, whether it be to something related to like a children's hospital or something along those lines. I mean,
I think it'll depend on what the situation is card wise by then. That's why I say, like, if it's 30, 40, or 50 years down the road and nobody cares about that stuff anymore, it's going to be kind of a hard sell. They're going to be like, well, what do you want me to do with it?
Right.
So I kind of you kind of have to judge it. You can keep it in the back of your mind. I think that's a legitimate thing to think about because even folks that do want to hand it off to their kids, maybe they don't want to hand all of it off. Maybe they would take a piece because even in your situation, maybe not the whole thing, maybe certain specific things. They'd be like, I'd love for you guys to hang on to this. The rest of it, you can do this, or this, distribute it in this way.
Well, seeing from like my perspective, and I may have mentioned this before in other shows or whatnot, the Terrell Davis collection is mine. That's that's the passion.
Sure.
So it's one of those in which, at some point, unless there's something specific that, my kids would want or something along those lines, that'd be something that here, type situation. Hold
Yeah,
on to it from a
burial tombs,
sentimental.
Bobby. Burial tombs, whatever. You know what I'm getting at. Don't get it. Don't get that picky.
Mausoleum.
Yeah, exactly. Like the pharaohs and that they would have their thing down there, and there were plenty of hieroglyphics in those. I assure you, there'll be a Ziggy Palfy in there as well. You got to have that. You got to tell the story fully. You know.
Exactly. But from that perspective, I don't foresee me keeping it forever. The Terrell Davis collection. At some point, it'll reach a peak to where okay, it would be advantageous for me to move on from it. So, me personally, I feel as though the Terrell Davis collection I would sell at some point down the road.
Mm.
Whatever, and what road that is, how long down that road is, that's left to be determined. The other stuff is one of those in which is the quote unquote long term investment aspect
Mhm.
to where that would be what's passed on to my kids to ultimately do with what they want. And, like we say, you hope that it brings some sort of financial, uh, I don't want to use the term financial windfall, but, some sort of financial assistance
Mhm.
for them as adults or whatnot in the event that there's still value at that point in time. Who's to say that's going to be there? I mean, we've all thought that there's always the possibility that at some point there is no value.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thought process, at least initially. Uh, but at this point, I don't know what that's going to look like and when that's going to take place, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, the good news is it doesn't have to be like a one-time process where you figure it all out in one shot. Like even not related to cars, but in that same vein, same concept. My parents are in their mid 60s. So my mom is approaching the time where this summer she's going to officially retire, which is quote unquote, which is code for she's probably going to do some consulting work and do a couple of other things and all that because she is a workaholic and she will quit when she drops dead. That's just her way, and that's fine. And I joke with her. It's like you'll be happier working because you don't know how to retire. You don't know how to relax.
Mhm.
You don't know. Carlos Senior knows how to relax. He'll be just fine. He's been retired for years. But what happens though is when she's making her plans for it, she's figuring out all her retirement stuff, making sure she's got all my. She's fine. She's got pensions, multiple, plural. So she's done well. But the thing is, one of the things she did is okay. As I'm planning this out, I go, well, we have the company. She set up a corporation like 20 years ago to do her consulting stuff. Well, it'll still be in effect. It's still in there. When I was doing consulting work, they needed an LLC, they needed a corp number for tax purposes and everything. Well, I just went over and go, hey, have you been keeping it up? And she goes, yeah, I need the GST number. So I did all of my contracting work through the company, and I'm one of the trustees on the paperwork. So for her, it's like she's going to keep using it because now she's going to go back into consulting, so she's going to keep using it. But she said, what I'd like to do is I'd like to shift around the paperwork so that you are the president of the company. He goes, I know you're working and doing your thing, but down the road you may want to do some consulting or something. And if you do, it's still in effect and you can just do what you need to. It's planning. But
Mhm.
it's not because she's planning on relinquishing it today or tomorrow. It's she's like, well, if we set it up already so it's done, structurally, nothing has changed because we're still going to use it the same way. But then if and when I get older or I pass away or whatever happens, it's like it just flips right over. Done. Groundwork's already been laid well in advance and everybody knows what to do, where everything is and what all the paperwork is, and you're good to go.
So, Dave, from your perspective, what do you foresee for your stuff?
How many warehouses do they get? Do you specify by warehouse number?
Warehouse code.
Yeah, nice.
It's
Nice.
basically like a redemption. Then you have a QR scanner. You can just go up to that. And
So this would be a sophisticated process, not like Homsi, like where you actually know where shit is.
yes, and I wouldn't have to buy the new building and then
Mm,
rejoice and celebrate and
that's
post
important.
about
I hear you got to do that on social media. A lot of promotion.
it. A lot of pumping of buildings and real estate. But I'll probably have, I'd imagine, just like one Josh Johnson auto buried with me or burned with me because I'd rather be cremated and dumped in Lake Superior for obvious reasons.
Well, of course.
Um, I don't know about the rest. It just depends where I'm at. If Naomi cares about it, my lady, we need to pay off bills, and some of that stuff can go for that. Um, if for some reason a lot of the stuff just takes off, sell it. Then if it can pay for like Naomi's schooling or whatever, maybe a down payment on a house for her. And if the Josh Johnson stuff is absolutely dirt cheap, has no value, and his kids were or his wife somehow found out through the grapevine, like this lunatic in northern Minnesota has more Josh Johnson cards than any one person or all the people in the world combined it should have. And she's like, I really like them for my kids or their kids if they've got them at the time, her grandkids. I'd be up for just giving it to them. I mean, if that stuff doesn't hold any value, which right now it's not a lot, if that's the case, may as well give it to them where they can at least enjoy it and be told stories of these times or whatever and keep that going instead of dumping it down in the Dallas Fort Worth area into the bonfire of cards that just seems to be never ending.
Valid.
So, I mean, I've thought of it, but not to the point where I'd like to get something semi in writing just to think ahead. But yeah, I don't want to have something like an ironclad, like, oh, here's this is exactly what's going to happen, not knowing, like, here's tentative, and then 10 years from now, well, here's a little more, we'll streamline it a little, narrow it up, and okay, if I live to 60, we'll really tighten it up because the old Archer males don't last that long. But usually they've done it to themselves through drinking, smoking, and other means. So, like, well, once Josh Johnson's number hits, if I get to 55, then it's got to be a narrow focused plan of what's going to happen because that clock is going to be ticking. That boogeyman clock is going to be just like tick, tick, tick. Because at some point I'm going to be, I won't say nervous, because again, when we're born, that clock is ticking anyway, and we're all going to die at some point. But I'm sure it'll become ever present with the family histories and whatnot. And you start thinking like, well, all these potato chips really haven't done me much good.
Well, Dave, I've often said that I can think of no one else that has worked actively as you have for longevity.
Oh yeah, that's
so. You know, we often look to you as a model of guys. If you want to know how longevity is achieved, Lake Superior Ranch and potato chips and chicken sandwiches.
Yeah.
This is it, guys, right here.
At least chicken sandwiches are somewhat healthy.
There is protein. There is protein. That's a thing. That's something.
This is true.
Yep.
If deliciousness was like a vitamin, that would be at 100% of the daily value.
That is an approach, yes.
That's definitely one way to put it there, Dave.
But one thing I was going to say based on what Dave was saying, though, is that this is where I like to borrow from the model of like some of the other hobbies as well, because they deal with similar things, right? The numismatics folks, the coin collectors and all, because some of them build up big collections. And that's where some of those big auctions go. Not everybody's going to have that option. But one of the things they end up doing is that they basically, they do kind of what Dave was saying. At a certain point, they say, okay, I'm not planning on dying tomorrow, but I don't want to have the whole thing right now and then be at the last minute going, oh, what the heck do we do? They basically scale back a little bit and say, okay, I don't need all of this stuff around me, but there's some stuff I want to keep around me, until later on. And then we'll deal with a much more manageable issue when the time comes. We're not trying to figure out what to do at the last second. Oh, shoot. I got this whole warehouse full of stuff, you know. It's like, sell some of this and then send this over there and then do this, that, and the other thing. It's like, no, no. It's, if you've already got it, at least you could be scaling back years in advance. That's why I use that analogy with my parents. My parents are not planning on punching out any minutes anytime soon. Like I said, my dad will probably be here with the cockroaches at the end after the nuclear holocaust. That'll be it. And most likely, given my genetic predisposition, I'll be there making fun of them. And that's how this is going to work. But aside from that, that doesn't mean they can't start planning out like, all right, let's just make our lives easier. That way we're not worried about it and we're worried on enjoying whatever time we have. Shouldn't be a stressful thing. As you get older, theoretically, you're looking for ways of reducing your stress, not increasing your stress.
Yeah.
That's the ideal.
That's the hope.
Yes, that's right.
No, absolutely. It's an interesting topic. It can go a multitude of ways. I mean, a few individuals, of course, have already, kind of chimed in on as far as kind of where they are currently. But it's one of those in which it's something we all have to think about at some point. Because let's be real, as Dave put it, the minute you're born, the clock starts ticking, and for all we know, it could technically be up tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You could walk out on the street to go to your mailbox or whatever and get hit by a car. I mean, those are not usual circumstances. However, it's a matter of always the possibility of something transpiring. So I feel like I have I don't want to say a solid plan, at least right now. But as I continue to get older and kind of zig and zag as it pertains to what area of the collection I'm focusing on, it's something in which is really going to have to, at some point, be more, I don't want to say specific, but more outlined of what goes where and why and things along those lines. Because when you have multiple kids, you don't want to give more to one than the other, and of course have it become an issue, so to speak, either. Because although my son is my stepson, I've raised him since he's been 4 years old. So, as far as I'm concerned, he's mine and will always be mine. So I have to make sure that I think about it as equal as possible when, I sit down and really start identifying kind of what the plan will look like.
See, Steve, that's good parenting. Carlos Sr. doesn't have that approach because originally when my mom approached the idea, she goes, well, you and your brother could fight for it. I go, you may refer to me as El Presidente. Let's just skip to the end. Let's just skip to the end of this conversation. Refer to me by my proper title, El Presidente. Roberto doesn't get a say in the matter. He's just fortunate that I keep him in the will.
But, that happens too.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if, let's say in 3 years, let's say we're still doing this or we're not. In the event that we are, it'll be interesting to see, to go back and look at the archives and see, okay, has anything changed from, good old 2021 to, 2024 or 2025? Because, things change. The market changes, as we've all experienced. We always talk about it, but so yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we, have an opportunity to revisit this at some point in the future and see if there's been any changes in the approach or the ideas or the plans, for that matter. That is something interesting to, getting a trust in place for something like that, though, too. It does add some additional level of protections. I don't want to go too much in detail because I'd be speaking out of my ass, to be brutally honest, because I don't know the ins and outs of how that works. But, that's always an option. It's definitely something that you don't want to go to your estate in the event that something happens to both you and your spouse type situation. Because that just complicates things. So a lot of ways to look at it.
I'd say just have, again, like, don't need something set in stone,
Hmm.
but just let the people closest to you know, hey, the Terrell Davis go here. All those worthless sets with all those key rookies that are going to go for millions of dollars go here. Um, but just know, sort of have, even if it's just on a notebook scratch paper, just have something in something where somebody knows where it's at. Just in case, again, like you said, going to the mailbox. Well, there's the neighbor 3 doors down. He hates me, so today's the day that jacked up F-150 is gonna take me out, and then you're done. So at least,
Let's be
okay,
fair, Dave. The most likely way for you to go is going to be mid Lake Superior rant, where you finally give yourself an aneurysm. That is like if I'm going to take odds, I'm putting some money down on that one.
I think it'd be if I ever went to like a Dallas show, like a sports card show. That'd probably be where I'd have either a group of people that really enjoy my content on here, or a group of people that really don't enjoy my content on here usher me over. Hey, there's a Josh Johnson Topps Chrome Superfractor, the '06 one. Some seller has it over here, just through that door. Okay.
You mean the one
And
that's surrounded by darkness? Yes, that one.
I got
I'll
your back,
do
Dave. I got your back, Dave.
it's going
I
to my
got
best.
you, man.
See, Bob Lewis has some very bad advice. That's terrible. I know exactly what to do in that situation. One word: kindling.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention the same thing. Oh, and by the way, the 2000 Upper Deck said just make sure you pull the Brady out and shred it.
Yeah, get rid of that one. The rest of them are fine. They should be held in an exalted place. But that Brady, trash.
Yes, the historic run of Carlos's love and appreciation for number 12.
As an oracle once said, Steve, much love. I have much love.
Touche, touche. Anybody else in the comments though have any thoughts, any plans for themselves, or have you even thought about it just before we kind of quote unquote button up the topic and see where the rest of the evening takes us? Had a feeling this one wouldn't be a long-winded conversation, but it is pertinent because, as we all say, we're not getting any younger, unfortunately, unless any of us find the fountain of youth. Bobby, since you're the historian, can you get on that and make sure you only share it with certain individuals as far as the fountain of youth is concerned?
Mhm.
So you'd still be claustrophobic, Bobby. Not to well, on the flip side, Bobby, you're dead. You're not gonna know if you're in
Yeah.
a tight space or not. So from that perspective, it's irrelevant.
He wants to be cremated and left in a very large box. It'll make him more comfortable.
Uh, how much ash do you think that actually creates?
No, I'm aware of that. Listen, I didn't say it was
I'm,
practical. I'm trying to accommodate Bobby's wishes here.
I'm not talking about you, Carlos.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Bobby.
I think he'll, if his goal is to be scattered over the Pacific or Atlantic Ocean, even in the box, I think we're golden. We don't have to worry.
Hmm.
But
You could
yeah,
always have the Undertaker urn if you want, It's always a possibility.
we can get a new pallbearer.
Exactly.
Oh, my Undertaker.
Well, basically, yeah. Well, in honor of you, the first promo could be done from Lake Superior.
Oh, yeah.
Like, come on. Done.
I would do it.
Seems
Yeah.
legit.
I don't know. You think about, you'd want to help. See, I don't know if I'd want to help collectors out. And it sounds crass and asshole-ish or whatever. But at the same time, you always know a good majority of collectors, like let's say Steve somehow befriends like a handful of these TD collectors that have been around a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it'd just be like vultures on a carcass. You're just picking whatever you can get at. You're not gonna be. It's not gonna be like, hey, this TD Mirror Gold Z Team 97. This is something in this range. So you put it on there before you go. Okay, here's it's at like 150, whatever. Maybe super high, maybe super low. The market at that time is 150. You bought it for X at what year? So then you've got like collector A. Well, I'd offer like 120. Collector B is like, I'd offer like 105. And then there's like somebody like 110. He's like, I'd buy 80. I'd get it for 80. That's where I'd just be like, wouldn't want to burden anybody. I mean, I burdened enough people while I was alive. Why do it after I'm gone?
Well, if you're gonna go that route, Dave, then go full burden. What you do is you give it away for free, but you give it away for free if you can complete these tasks. Turns out these tasks are kind of dangerous, and most of you will die in the attempt. But the important thing is, if one of you make it to the end of the line, it's yours free. Done. It's like, I think almost everyone died. I think only one guy got anything. Congratulations. You were worthy.
That could be a goal too. Swim through a pit of tar.
Listen, you got to make it like a full-fledged ordeal at that point. Just have some fun. It's like, it turns out it was the Holy Grail. Actually, that was the fake Holy Grail. It's like, what is that? Plutonium. You have 6 months to live. Try again. Oh, man.
That was melted Doge coins.
Ooh. Double vicious.
Where's Crypto Griff when you need him?
I know.
Maybe he'll come out of the woodwork now that he's been
Summoned?
He's been summoned. Yep.
Well, the crypto's done well. If you had some Ethereum, you would have done well the last week or so.
So speaking of Ethereum, I'm just going to ask the question.
Sure.
You know, the whole 5-5 thing is coming. I don't know if you know what I'm alluding to, but you know, Gary V has been all over this 5-5 thing.
Oh, okay. So this is similar to what they tried to do with Doge, because they tried to do the 420 thing.
One of the requirements.
Yeah.
That's 5-5 as well.
Nice.
One of the requirements is you must have this specific, cold storage wallet or whatever, and have at least one Ethereum. But supposedly he's been amping it up.
Oh, okay. So this is the NFT thing.
My guess, because the whole pig thing type whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
Talking about giving back, he's been blessed in all this aspect and giving back and all this other kind of stuff. But it's like, it'll be interesting to see what this turns out to be. But since he's so high on NFTs, I'm sure it has to do with his pig little sketch that he has and the requirements around it. So Card Porn had kind of combined a lot of it into one little post to get people's take on what they thought it would be.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. It's one of those things where everybody is trying to get into that space a little bit, which I get. I'm not going to knock it. But it's kind of what we said before. I've always thought the thing that made the most sense was just going in and just monitoring it, because that's all you really need to do. You don't need to go crazy and lose your mind. It's just pay attention. It's, doesn't hurt to do that. And then check it out and see, because long term, the technology will still be there. I believe in the technology. The specific thing, this coin, that coin, the other thing, I have no idea. And I don't think anybody else really does either. We're guessing. Bitcoin has been around long enough where I think it's going to have some staying power. I think it's still going to be there. Ethereum has utility, like it's used for a lot of these things as the underpinning technology for it. So likely that will have some staying power. And everything else, your guess is as good as mine. It could be Doge, rises to to being the other one, even though it's a meme coin and it literally has no additional value other than the unrelenting love of Dave and Cryptogriff. It's got that going for it, but
And Cuban.
of course.
Can't forget Cuban.
Yeah, well,
Elon Musk, of course, but
Elon,
you
yeah.
know,
Yep.
but you know, Cuban's pushing it in a sense to where you know they're accepting Dogecoin for Mavs tickets. So because of Cuban being the sole owner of the Mavs or whatever, he and the Mavericks right now I think have the highest percentage ownership of Doge that's in existence right now.
Could be.
So from that perspective, he of course is going to want it to do well, and he doesn't give a crap who pumps it.
Yep.
Keep pumping it. You're making me even more money.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, yes. Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to say the least. The times are interesting. Um, the market still interests me. It just, I don't want to spoil what I have incoming, but I was actually able to get something that has eluded me for years, so to speak. A few of the guys already know what it is, so I'll be looking forward to sharing that when that actually finally comes home. Uh, your guys are going to have to wait until June, of course, because, you know, since I do my videos for pickups the month after. Uh, but nice card. And I got it for cheaper than what I expected. 20 something dollars cheaper than my max bid,
Mm-hmm.
which was even better because I was trying to at least stay within past comps that I had seen. Now it's been some time since one had been listed, but hoping for the best, and I got lucky. So looking forward to that. So good times, good times. There's still deals to be had, as we always talk about. If you're willing to be patient and look around and everything else, you know, I still haven't pulled the trigger on any set additions or anything along those lines. I'm still doing a lot of watching and paying attention to comps because when I focus on whatever set that is, I want to make sure that I'm aggressive enough to where I can accomplish the end result
Mm-hmm.
without overpaying. And I know overpaying is all relative, but you know it's one of those, as collectors we still can have that sense of, well, you know, I probably kind of overpaid for said card. It does happen. For these situations, I'm really trying to pay attention and really get a feel before I start actively pursuing some of them.
Yeah, I think we all have something coming in. I've got to wait for a while. I don't know how long, but the shorter the wait, the happier I'll be. So I want both parties there to get what they're supposed to be getting, and then it's on to the second trade because I know he wants. I don't know if it's like 12 more cards. I would like the hockey stuff I've put up, and I know he's got something else I really want. That one for about 10.5 times of what somebody on this panel right now paid for their copy of their version of the card recently, and I've picked up a couple Brodeur patches. Again, it's still a new market because none of this stuff comes up, and I know where I want to be because I sort of know where Carlos was on Madano.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, if he paid that much for this, I know it's a year or so or two earlier, so it's going to be obviously more desirable at being in that first patch class, but 2 years later, 3 years later, there's still 1 in 7,500. I know what I'm comfortable at. Am I overpaying to maybe some of these old school Brodeur? collectors, perhaps that's
Mm.
fine. But it's always where you feel comfortable. So if somebody says you're overpaying, somebody says you got a great deal, remember that. And I try to, this is where my positivity leaks in the group chat. I'm like, if you feel comfortable with the purchase and you're happy with it, end of story. Put that period at that sentence, and it doesn't matter if somebody else says you overpaid or you paid 20 over comp or 50 over comp, or if you had a number in mind, you feel comfortable, you can afford it. Check, check, check.
Look at this guy extolling the virtues of the power of positivity.
I know I'm not the ray of sunshine that others are, but I try.
Yeah. The way I try to position it is that I call it I call it intuitive bidding when it comes to eBay, because sometimes there's some stuff where there isn't really a comp.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to kind of get a feel for where you're comfortable. And sometimes you'll bid. It might be high. It might be low. It's hard. The only way you can really tell usually if it's an item that isn't like artificially pumped in any way, if it's just a collectible item, if it goes in open auction, starting with a low bid, usually you'll find out what the market is. That is the most pure way of finding out, assuming there's no extraneous circumstance. That's usually the purest answer to how much is this worth right now today.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, if a seller has it and it hasn't come up in years and they're really not willing to move too far off the price and you end up where you end up, then that's the going rate until the next one sells.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why and unfortunately, like, work out in the way, but I will still make the video, is that I do want to kind of talk about the comp itself as a concept, because it's taken on this almost holy thing where it's like, no, it's still a guide.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to follow. A comp is a useful guide to give you a ballpark of where things have gone recently. But a comp can be trending upward. A comp can be trending downward. So the correct answer might be a little bit higher, or it might be a little bit lower, because that's the direction things are going. Or it might be pretty steady. Or maybe the last comp was 5 years ago, and you know what? It's like the third movie of a trilogy. All the rules are out the window. You don't know. It doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all factors. And if you are a more experienced hobbyist, though, you will know that, because you'll be able to go like, okay, but if it's a 5-year-old comp, you might as well throw it out.
Yep.
It doesn't mean anything anymore. Where is it today?
Yep. Because it can go any direction from that perspective. Nowadays, as you alluded to, comps are more used as a guide more than anything. You go back before the market boom, there was a little bit more substance behind the comp. Even if it was something that sold a year ago, that there was still some sort of substance to really base things off of to a certain degree. But since the market trends consistently change day over day, sometimes hour over hour, depending on situation and circumstance, it's not gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be interested to see what take you end up going with, Carlos, on that, because depending on what path you take, there's multiple aspects that can ultimately be discussed. And knowing you the way that you are, you're going to touch on a lot of various ideas and concepts and points surrounding that concept. But I'm interested to see what you bring to the table and what conversations come from it within the comments, because depending on which sides you take, if you're going straight down the middle, if you're playing both sides, which normally you kind of try and do, you're trying to be that impartial third party, so to speak, in situations like that. It'll be interesting to see what people's take are on what you bring to the table.
Yeah, I think in that vein, it's going to be, I'll give my opinion, but I'm not going to give a definitive conclusion because there isn't one. But you can
Absolutely.
but you can present a couple of different directions to take on it, because I'm not really spoiling anything. I'm just stating the obvious. It is going to be case by case. There are going to be situations where the comp still is valid because the pricing has stayed pretty consistent, because we talked about it. For some items, the price really hasn't changed that much. So the price from 6 months ago is probably reasonably valid It's probably fine. It's the ballpark. And if a seller won't go below that, well, then that's the going rate if you would like to buy one. Or and if you're going to sell one, unless you're giving like a super bro price, you're probably going to sell it for right around the same price because that's been the going rate and people have been willing to pay that. And they're not willing to pay much more. So you're not going to be able to press them to go any higher unless you just want to hold on to it forever. In that case, the comp is very valid. In other situations, it's this, streaky market where it's like you're either way low or way high because of the movement and the way it's trending. It's going to be card by card, player by player, item by item.
Sport by sport, even. I mean, so yeah. And I like LA Pat's thought process. If you think you overpay for one, but you get a steal on the other one, they kind of do cancel themselves out if you look at it from a financial perspective, I guess. But that could also be a little overreaching, depending on how your mind works.
I think though the if you are somebody who buys, sells, or does whatever enough stuff over time, I think it does even out. Unless you're just insane and you just be like, I don't care what the card is. Here's $1,000. It's like it's a common, whatever, $1,000. But then you're never gonna balance it out. But the likelihood is over the course of time, maybe you overpaid $20 or $30 for this card, but then you probably underpaid $30 or $40 for this card, overpaid by 5, underpaid by 10, and over the course of time, it pretty much levels out, and you probably ended up spending about what you should have over the long run. In short runs, though, it can swing wildly in one direction or another.
So with that one, that Jason Robertson, where again,
he's playing well, but they're right on the brink of missing the playoffs now.
yeah,
They basically have to win out.
still, when I got this, it was like 20, 25, so like 29 shipped. And then I had a couple more on the watch list just in case. If they were in that same range, I was going to pick them up.
Mhm.
But they were close to 50 then. And that was like 2 days later, 3 days later.
Mhm.
And I know he had an insane month of April. I think we're in 13 and 19 games, he scored a point. And he was the rookie of the month. So that in this environment with Kaprizov being just insane for the Wild, that's a huge accomplishment just in its own right because that's all you've heard about rookie-wise besides the goalie for Chicago at the beginning of the year. Now he's sort of tapered off, but he's still doing decent. But it's been Kaprizov. And now you got Caulfield for Canadians came up.
Okay.
So, and I know he was, I think, the third pick last year out of Wisconsin, the Badgers. And I don't know. It's just trying to navigate the market, especially when I have no idea about that stuff. I readily admit it. I know that his mom's from the Philippines. So again, I've mentioned that before. I try to get at least a connection with Naomi, where she's like, okay, I want to have. That's cool. And then maybe she'll gravitate. Hopefully, I'm not going to push it on her, but I'm going to give her these nuggets, these tidbits of information, and these doors. If you want to go through that door and learn about them, check it out, see whatever. That's fine. If not, again, fine. But I'd like you to at least take a few steps into the doorway and just see what it's about before completely poo-pooing it and not even caring. Because again, you don't hear again tons of, at least I don't, people in sports, athletes from the Philippines or have the Philippine blood that she's got that are just doing like wildly successful.
Mhm.
I mean, most of them can't go on amusement park rides. I mean, it's just not feasible. So now that you've got him, Jason for Dallas doing well, his brother Nick for the Leafs is also doing well as a defenseman. It's like, okay, these are guys you can follow and just, you don't have to sit there and like look every day what they're doing, but know that name in the back of your head. Keep it on the tip of the tongue where it's like, okay, how the Leafs are, what are they doing? Okay, well, how's Robertson doing? but it's tough to get the kids away from games, saying nonsensical words. I mean, I thought I was bad, but she's got just a she's got the Mario, the mushroom and the fire flower, and she's like leveled up like 5 times. Like, I don't know what you're even saying. Just listen to me for 5 minutes, and then you can say all your stupid catchphrases all you want, but just give me a little time.
Geez, Dave, catch up on your terminology, man. Damn, what's your problem?
Gotta be
Oh,
hip
I
with the
know
kids,
the
Dave. Come
terminology.
on.
I know the terminology. It's just wretched. Wow. And then when you hear it, when she's like, cringe, oh, that's cringe. I'm like, shut up. Oh, there you know.
It's the sign of the times, Dave. It's the sign of the times. And no matter how much I've always said this, as Carlos dongs the microphone, which it's usually always dead on in certain situations. It kind of cracks me up because it's usually unintentional. It just happens to work out that way.
The arm knows. The arm knows when the time's right.
Early on, we are heavily responsible for raising our kids, morals, values, and everything else. But as they get older and the further along they go in school, society is actually has more of an impact on their morals, values, word usage, terminology, whatever, than what we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate, in my opinion, in a lot of situations. But at the end of the day, as parents, you hope that those roots eventually grow stronger, and then they continue to progress and get past some of the youthful terminology and things along those lines, that they kind of grow out of it.
Yeah. It's,
Just my opinion. I've seen it with my nephews. Uh, I've seen it with my son. Not so much with the kiddo here.
mm-hmm.
Uh, they're, but then again, they're 15 or 14 going on like 42 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's listening to the conversations when I come go and pick her up at school between like her and her friends. I'm like, you two are certifiable. You need to find a padded room and just sit in there and say whatever catchphrases you're saying, because my cerebral fluid is going to come gushing out my ears and nose very quickly if you don't shut up.
See, what Dave would have preferred is they would have preferred if Naomi had gone and screamed all kinds of words at Lake Superior and maybe filmed that for a YouTube video. It would have been fine. Would have been fine.
But see, it's not four-letter words, Carlos, so therefore it doesn't compute in Dave's head.
I was gonna say, like, it was like the problem is that there's more letters involved. Cringe, Dave. Cringe.
No.
Triskaidekaphobia.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun having a kid, which it really is. But some of the nomenclature.
I was waiting to see. I resisted. I completely resisted. I go. I figure one of us is going to do it eventually, but I'm like, I'll wait. I'll wait.
I was this close from saying it too, but
It was only a matter of. It was only a matter of time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it is.
The one thing is, though, Dave, if you really think about it, although it's difficult and challenging and a struggle sometimes for us right now, just wait until our kids have kids. And you don't even have to respond.
No.
The look in your face, the look in your eyes, the face. That's all I needed, because I think about it all the time and I'm going, we're screwed.
Yeah, it's. I've said it many times when I'm driving. When we've watched Naomi and I have watched the crash videos, the dash cam stuff, and she'll just be like, "Why is that guy such an idiot?" I said, "This is why, and this is what I'm teaching you now. Worry about yourself when you're driving. You need to be cognizant of everybody else driving because everybody else is stupid. Know what you're doing out there so you're not one of these idiots that's like ramrodding all over the place and being dumb. You have to worry about yourself on the road. It's like a demolition derby, and you hope you don't have the derby part or really the demolition." So I that's when they say that not all moments are teaching moments. I digress.
Depends on the way that you look at it. There's always opportunities for teaching moments.
Oh yeah.
Always. Always, always. So now we've got Dave using my term. I think everybody now, whether it be live on the show or in the group chat, has used my phrases. I'm up to a few $100s, I think. Dave, when should I expect your payment now?
6 to 8 months.
Oh, so I guess I need to go ahead and send it over to collections. All right.
Well,
I'll get my collections people on that.
I've,
Carlos,
lear- I've learned
Take-
from Con C that's acceptable. So
Carlos,
Wow.
take care of my light work.
I do that type of collections work pro bono for the love of the game.
Oh,
It's like
damn it.
did you get the money? It's like there was money now, but he's bleeding on the ground. Yeah. Said collections. Were you supposed to get the money? Oh, that thing. Well, you get what you pay for. Deal with it.
Yeah, well, I guess it happens.
Be careful who you
Always.
contract to work out to. That's an important life lesson. Once again,
Obviously.
a teachable moment. Once again,
Yep.
an important teachable moment.
Very true. Very true. See, we've touched on all sorts of things this evening. It's been interesting. Uh, we've gone from A to Z to Q to T.
To Omega.
Theta, pi.
Mm-hmm.
Where to next, fellas? Where was that, Dave?
Umlaut. That is the 2 dots above like a German word or a German letter.
Oh, okay. The little accent thing on top. Yeah.
See?
Wait until the end of hour 2, where Dave will discuss the accent aigu and the Pythagorean theorem. You can look forward to that.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
Yep.
Interesting.
We'll fit it in.
Considering-
It'll all come together by the end.
Well, considering that's, well, at least not this week or last week, but recently, that's what they were learning in math class in preparation for the state test. Do you have state testing up there, Dave?
Yeah, I don't know how much of it. And I don't think it's like every year. I don't think it this year. I don't know if they had one last year. Or if it's the 3rd grade. Because I remember one of the years that there was a big test about it. And I know it must be like once every 3 years, grade-wise.
Because they have it, so it starts in 3rd grade here and goes all the way through senior year. And certain grade levels have certain tests
Mhm.
that correlate. So, like 7th, is it 7th or 6th? I don't remember. But English and math is every year. That is like the staple. So English and math is every year. And then certain years have history and science. Some just have science. Some have writing, whatever. But because they have put the mandate out there that they're still conducting the state test outside of those that are in high school, which is tied to like the graduation plan. So you have to pass the state test in order to graduate. It's tied together. Because of COVID, you can technically opt out of the state test, and it does not impact their progression to the next grade. Because they are forcing it in person. So they've had all these students going to school remote because of, COVID-19 related concerns, or, in my kiddo's instance, being exposed to it, granted, negative, so on and so forth. But at that point, because, and I'm going to say it, we have too many stupid people. Oh, yep, there's
That's
the book.
Bobby. I got a bunch on existential philosophy, Bobby. Don't worry, I got you.
We have too many stupid people in this world that, don't follow necessary guidelines that are put forth by the CDC and everything else to put other people in harm, which would be why my kiddo was exposed. So my wife and I have actually made the conscious decision that we are opting out of the state tests because we don't want to put the extra amount of stress on the kiddo, not just from the test perspective, but to potentially put themselves in harm's way.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
So I had concerns because there was discussions to where they were going to allow it to be done online. Well, and it's like, okay, that's great. If they can do it online, then there's no need to go physically somewhere and take the test, right? Mm-hmm. Well, not reading the fine print, so to speak. Yes, they're issuing the test online, but you're still required to go somewhere to where you could be monitored. In other words, they don't trust the kids, nor the parents for that matter, that a kid would sit there and take the test without cheating.
Yeah, but that's
take that for what it's worth.
That's a function of a bad test, though. Because later on in your schooling, you'll end up with tests where it's open book. They literally give you they say you can have the book, you can have like a page of notes or something. And it's like, but if you don't know the material, that's not going to save you. Correct. Because the test is structured in such a way where you have to demonstrate some knowledge of the subject. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big fan of standardized testing because it just proves, because really you could have a standardized test was like, so do you know is this a state? Yes, you pass, get out.
Yeah.
Well, and the other issue that I have, because I've been paying attention to a lot of like the practice tests and stuff that they've been doing for like science and history. Mm-hmm. Math is pretty straightforward. Okay, I get it. For English, I get it. Read a passage, answer questions. You have to understand certain concepts and leveraging context clues to provide what you think the definition of a certain word is. Okay, I get all that.
Yep.
But for science and history, they teach all these topics, and then these questions that they give you, it's not something as straightforward of, who's the first president of the United States? Well, of course, we know that that's George Washington, right? For those of us who live in the U.S. Now, I'm assuming you know that answer too, Carlos. Even
American history was one of my specialties, Steve. So
okay, so I didn't want to assume. I knew you were a history major, but I didn't want to assume.
Yeah, American history was one of the areas of emphasis that I took a lot of courses on. Yeah.
So great. Most people would know the answer. No, it's based on this specific excerpt from said speech during the whatever. Who said this? Well,
conflict.
If you don't know specific dates and things along those lines, there's a good possibility that a kid's not going to know that George Washington said that, or Andrew Jackson, or George Bush. you get where I'm going with this. So
Yeah,
in that situation,
I do think the one thing that is always tricky for me is that I don't like the who is the first president because that's basically trivia.
Hmm.
I know
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
No, no,
oversimplifying
I get you.
the
But
ask.
I've actually seen that type of question on there where I'm like, guys, this is glorified trivia. My buddy's a school teacher, and I'll see some of the questions he'll put on there. It's like, dude, why don't you just call it trivia night then? Because this is not a demonstration of any knowledge. This is, can you regurgitate to me some facts that you read off a sheet? Because that's all it would have taken to pass this.
In a lot of situations, I don't disagree. But there are even me looking at some of those questions. I have to pick up certain little points and be like, okay, looking at the selection, read the thing and look at the answers, and it's like, yes, they teach you, process of elimination. Usually, two answers are way out in left field, but then you look at both of them and you're going, well, it could technically be that one, and it also could be that one because of the time frame. So then you get to the point to where it's a ton of guessing. And to me, that kind of defeats the purpose, though, too, because guessing does not demonstrate any knowledge either.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's been an interesting year, to say the least. I think that they would have done well. I have no concerns from that perspective, but it's one of those in which we're still trying to get stuff figured out medically for this one in here. They haven't come out and fully diagnosed as ADHD and anxiety disorder, but that's what they're leaning towards. And of course, as a parent, any way to try and alleviate or avoid any additional stressors or anything along those lines, we're going to do our damnedest to make them comfortable, so to speak.
Sure.
So it's been a rough year, man, to say the least. To say the least. Oh, Dave had to go get what he had so he could answer Bobby.
And refill.
Nice.
I haven't had the orange before. I don't know what that is. Carlos,
That's
do you know what that
the
is?
tops. I want to say, like, I actually think I got the Medana the other day. Yeah, it's like the homegrown from like 95 tops or something like that, Dave?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so. I grabbed a Medano from that one the other day. So that's why I figured it was the. It's hard to tell because of the foil. The foil is actually hard to read, but the homegrown is on the bottom corner. That helps a little bit. Yeah. It's a cool looking card, but I'll be honest, some of them have been kind of overpriced because it's not like a particularly fancy card. It's like, for some reason though, it kind of stayed an obscure mid '90s card that I hadn't had my hands on previously, and I was like, I'm still missing this one.
Yep.
Check the binder. Yep, still missing this one. Okay, didn't make a mistake in the checklist. It's true.
Nice porn stash on that one, though.
Yeah, that was Trottier, right?
No.
Oh, Wendell Clark. Nice. Yeah, Wendell
I
Clark
think it
pulled that
was-
one off.
What, 99 cents with $2 shipping or $2 with 99 cents shipping? Well,
Yeah. So you guys already saw that one on the Instagram, but I'm a big fan of the Dufex. And that's the gold version out of 9, so nice. The only downside of this, and this one particularly showed an example of this, I don't think they ever thought through what would happen down the road when these things started getting scratched up. Because these cases are basically glorified Beckett cases, and it's like Beckett isn't going to replace that. And the only way you know it's out of 10 is at the top. Either you know or you read the label. Because the actual number is on the label. I'm like, guys, that was short-sighted. Long term, that's actually a really bad idea. What happens if this thing cracks and you have to take the card out? Maybe you got the label, maybe you don't, but that's the numbering right there on it. It's actually a bad idea. Cool looking card though, but a bad thought process behind the idea. I know it feels fancier, but down the road, actually, these things get scratched up like crazy.
Yeah, it's a nice card. I remember catching it not too right before coming online, I think, for the show. But then again, I love Dufex. Anything Dufex, one of my favorite technologies over the years, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's why normally I leave some of those late 2000s be a player the be a player ultimates or in the game ultimate. I like them, but I'm not going to go out of my way because of the thing with the case. The case is annoying. But something like Dufex, awesome. Absolutely. No problem.
Mhm.
Especially one that's a little bit rarer. Because
Yeah,
then I'm like, "Oh yeah, for sure. The out of 10? Yes." And then gold Dufex, sign me up. Done.
yeah, because that stuff, like we've said for all kinds of other cards, you just don't see them. They just don't pop up.
Yeah.
They're buried in somebody else's collection or another collector or something. So when they come into the wild, as we say, then it's a feeding frenzy because when are you going to see it again? Especially if you've collected a player for a good, healthy amount of time.
Hmm.
It's not like you're like, oh, that was up a month ago, I missed it, or 2 months ago I saw another one, a different number. Well, maybe 4 months ago there was another one too, and it's like, no, this stuff doesn't pop that often, so
Yeah.
you don't want to overspend, especially if it's not something you're dead set on getting. Maybe is on some sort of list. If you see it and you're like, oh, I don't recall it being that nice. I do like it though, and I will make a run at this.
Yeah. No, that was one where they had best offer, and
Okay.
I think it's a situation where it's it's not obscure, but it's obscure enough where you have to be looking. You have to be looking for it. Yeah, I don't have to worry about scratching the case. The work's already been done. At this point, you put a team back to keep it from getting more scratched. Yeah, I don't think the previous owners took very good care of it in that sense. I could see from the it's like that thing got scuffed up like crazy. But the price was pretty fair. It ended up being with best offer 45 Canadian.
Okay.
So pretty good. Not too bad. Not complaining. So I was pretty pleased with it. It's sorry, I said out of 10, but it's out of 9. So not too bad at all. Not too bad at all.
No, there's been one seller up in what is in Quebec, Laval, Laval. I don't know
Yep.
if there's what sort of special pronunciation or
I just say Laval.
that he has got a healthy amount of patches of Brodeur and
Mhm.
stuff of that ilk of that in the game, pretty much anything. And I'm like emblems and all-star patches and numbers and
Yeah.
the gold variations. It's just like, okay, well, I found the honey hole.
Hmm.
I check in my billfold. Okay, we're not getting all the honey.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping by the end of the summer to peg off at least 10 to 15 that I really want. I mean, there's other stuff that I wouldn't mind, but there's there's three more that maybe by the end of the month I'll try to get. Maybe sooner because I know they're ones I really enjoy. It wouldn't even matter if it's Brodeur, if it's Peyton Manning on the football side, if it's Tim Duncan on the basketball side, or it's McGuire or Bonds or whoever on the baseball. It could be the common player. I love the cards.
Hmm.
So if it's the guy I'm going hardest after, I may as well try to make a run at those. But it's just you see the guy has just it's like 4 or 5, 600 cards, maybe more. 'Cause I know I showed Vinny and he's just like I can't even look through this guy's cards of just Brodeur. It's just there's too much. And I'm like, imagine how I feel.
Yeah. Well, I think I will say he was on earlier, Cardi C, when he was chatting with. I saw the video he did with I want to say like Lee's Sports Cards or something.
Yep, yep,
And I watched the video and I was listening to him. First of all, I disagree. Austin Matthews has not surpassed Medano. He's only played like 5 seasons. Get out of here.
yep.
But down the road, though, he'll have his chance. And Patrick
Yep.
Kane, he's tracking to hold those records down the road, and I fully expect that because he's a
Mhm.
great player and he's playing fantastic. But he's 14 years in. Like he is now on pace to where he's pretty much got a lot. But somebody who's played 4 or 5 years, I'm not putting my head on anybody who's played 20. Like
Yeah.
I don't care how nice your 5 years were. But in time, sure, and because he's playing great and he's leading the league in goals and he's playing fantastic. So, but as a center, I do need to see some more assists because he's not actually demonstrating much playmaking ability, but goal scoring ability, tons, tons.
Yeah.
But once he gets his game rounded in, I don't have any issue with down the road. I expect Medano's records will all get broken and probably by multiple players over time. That's the way this is supposed to work. That's normal. But I was going to say one thing though that I agreed with what he said, but I want to expand upon it. One of the biggest differentiators with a lot of the hockey collectors is that there are pockets of them that very much operate to the type of obsession that you do with the Josh Johnson thing. Like there are some folks for certain players who are sitting on a cash, just a big cash, and as soon as you find out that they go in and collect a certain player, you'll find out that they actually have like this ridiculous depth. It's not just a couple of cards here and there, but you literally go in and you discover it's like, oh, they've got patches, they've got autographs, they've got the really limited cards, some super tough parallels and all kinds of things. And like for Modano, I've built that kind of collection, but it took me a long time. And some of these collectors have been doing it for a long time, and they've been accumulating. So you see, like that guy with the Brodeur, and there are some guys in Quebec who do that for different players or different series. And what you're going to discover is that sometimes the reason certain cards are tough to find is because they built sets. So like say Ultimate, and you say like, I can't find this patch. That's because this guy built a set and this guy built a set, and half of them are sitting in Quebec in sets because they built a complete set. That's why you can't find the specific player. So you got the player collectors trying to find it, you got the team collectors trying to find it, and then you had the ones that just built a set that are just sitting there, and they're going to sit there and rot for years until eventually they come on the market when they decide to break up the set years from now. And it'll take some time. And then you just look, and sometimes you see it on Instagram and go, what the heck? Because even like I said, that Lee guy, I hadn't heard of him, but I went and looked up his Instagram, and he's got a bunch of stuff from the Cup, and he's got basically a bunch of different shields for certain players. So if I was a collector of a couple of those shields, I know where they are.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like if he doesn't want to move them, you're not getting them.
Yeah, there's I think I'd mentioned, I don't even know in one of the chats, that came across like the guy with the ultimate, the first ultimate Brodeur shield and the price he wanted for that, and I'm like, that's still one that I want to go back to and try to start a conversation or get the conversation a little more in depth, because the price that he had, it's probably not a terrible price, especially being the first shield. Just the price itself, it's just like, oh, that we're talking a healthy chunk of money.
Dave, you got to just sell some of their stuff from the warehouse. I mean, you're sitting on stacks and stacks of old wax and everything else. It's you got it, man. Come on.
Move a couple of the 52 tops Manos, Dave. Just get over it. Go to the stack of the Manos, sell off a couple. You'll be fine. We joke about it though, but one thing, and we've said this before, Dave is the victim of his own success. Let's say, let's call it success. Let's be positive. We'll call it success. But really what it is that if you obsessively the thing about obsessively collecting is that if you obsessively collect too many things, you are the master of none. So because Josh Johnson, certainly the depth is there, but you've already done that you were already on that track some time ago. But then you go deep on the Brodeurs, but then you go and pick up some Gretzky's and stuff. It's like any dollars that went towards those are out of the fundage to that other thing. So while that Brodeur may be expensive enough, if you didn't buy those Gretzky's and didn't buy a couple of Waz and didn't buy a couple of the other, you probably could just been like, all right, here you go.
But to that point, some of those a good chunk of the Waz and a Gretzky and a Forsberg, which I got for an absolute steal, are going.
Yeah, in the trade, yeah.
So
I don't think that was the reason you did it originally, Dave. Don't try to retroactively justify this movie. So it was all part of my elaborate plan. It was me all along.
So yeah, and that's what I've been told before. It's like
By people with sense.
sense in both sense of the words, dollars and cents, and logical sense. So
Yes.
What logic? What is that? I haven't heard that word before.
well, when discussing my collecting theories and habits, yes, that this is correct.
Yeah, that's more along the lines of illogical.
Yeah, we're grading at a curve that'll be fair because anyone that collects, pieces of cardboard with people on them is kind of deranged anyway. But there's still levels. There's there's tiers of like derangement.
So Dave would be on a tier all of his own.
Oh, like we're talking we're talking top tier derangement, like full flat out, like just get the straitjacket. Let's go. The estate planning begins now, but he's not dead. He's going to the padded room. He's not going to need the cards. He'll be fine.
We got one of the best ones here in Texas, so they say.
Nice. They should put that on the brochure for. It's like, guys, come visit the fanciest padded room.
Oh, it was always a running joke in my family. Anytime something was getting out of whack or all jacked up or screwed up for whatever reason, always talk about, all right, time to call the paddy wagon, send me away to the padded room. Let's go.
Should have called that a long time ago for me. Ooh.
Well, I think maybe the way this will go, this will be an elaborate long con. He'll get you to visit the padded room, and then as soon as you turned your back, it's like jacket goes on. You get a boot in the behind. You're going in there. You're staying. Shut the door.
Shovel over the head or something, and then they get the jacket, and you wake up with the big old knot on your head. What happened?
No, they'll just inject you. They'll inject you.
Yeah.
They'll give you that good old stuff that just makes you like, what? I'm cold, so you're putting on a jacket. Thanks.
In fairness, given that it's Dave, like I said, we're bring it all back around to the health talk at the beginning of the discussion. It's like what they'll do is they'll inject him with vitamins, and his body will reject it. He goes, "No, I would have only taken cholesterol." He just passes out. It's like, what'd you do? We gave him vitamins.
This is my green fatty acids.
It's like your body rejected it. It was bizarre. I've never seen that before. That's crazy.
Yeah, I've thought about that a ton. It's like I don't think I could ever, even with the logic of like I can afford that Brodeur card if I'm cognizant and so narrow focused in funds for collecting because I've collected so long. And
I don't think you have to go full narrow, Dave, though. There is a happy medium between, say, narrow collecting one and 457,946,018,000 player collections. There's a large gap between those two numbers.
And one. Don't forget the M1.
Correct. And one. But there is a very big gap between those two extremes, Dave. You're way, way, way leaning into one side. You could probably pick like a half dozen players and collect them pretty deeply, and it would still be a lot easier than what you've attempted to pursue.
This is true. I'm glad a lot of the guys that I've collected heavily are retired or long since retired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because now if I see something like a Kerry Collins or Josh McCollum, I don't have to sit there and be like, oh, well, the next Prism Rainbow or Select Rainbow is coming out and I've got to look for this or that. It's pretty much a 101 comes up with them, something like the 25 or the 50 of Collins. I was like, okay, do I need it? Yes. Okay, I'll go after it. It's not just picking up this, that. Where Josh Johnson, it's a horrible, horrible disease where I can't let something go that I've got 23 of. I need It can't go, and it's not even the Jeremy effect. It's just I don't want somebody else to have it. I just
You
want it.
don't say.
It's shocking. I know. I'm glad you're sitting down for this, but
I'm glad too. I don't know if my heart could take it at this point.
well, with all this health talk going on, and
Bless you, Dave. Bless you for thinking of our health at this delicate time.
Let's just call it, folks. We're gonna call it like we see it. It is official. Dave is OCD.
slightly. Maybe.
Slightly, no.
Not even allegedly, Dave. Not even allegedly. Allegedly ain't getting you out of this one. Allegedly is powerful. It is a powerful word, my friend. A powerful. It does not have that type of power. It can't wipe this away. I'll be right back.
No worries. And much love, Dave. You know that.
Oh yeah, and Paul. Not that I'm ignoring you on the grams that are instant. Don't worry about the Doug weight. It's heading up to the Great White North. So
including your set that you won like 110 years ago. But part of that was on me though too. It took me a while to get stuff up to Dave, so it's not all on Dave. Part of it was on me.
You can blame me. It's fine.
No, I'm just as at fault as you are. It took me freaking forever to get the damn thing sent up there in the first place.
And
yeah, you'll have Christmas in June.
Yeah, you'll have like what the virtual expo, and at that time, probably, hopefully, allegedly in the mail, you'll get a set and a WA card. So there can't be anything better. I mean, get all the Connor McHockeys you want or whatever. No, that's pales in comparison.
Hey, the set definitely pales in comparison. That came out of my collection. Damn it!
Where
that says something.
The PC.
That says something. Although it was 8 of one set and 9 of another. Not like I couldn't spare it or anything. And at some point, we'll do another giveaway. At some point, I haven't figured that out yet. I know, Dave, this is coming as a shock to you, but at some point, I'll figure out something else to do while we sit here and make people guess excessively for an extended period of time.
Maybe you should do one of the state exam questions, and be like, if you can answer this correctly, then you get the card.
Well, here's the problem with that though. There's only 4 answers, so it wouldn't take long to. It's more fun to let people randomly throw out numbers. Makes for an intriguing broadcast to sit there and just watch random numbers.
Trickle on by.
People will sit there and watch this in the archives if they happen to just pick a random spot and they're like, what the F is this? Is this the number of times somebody has said F? Or
well, if by the grace of God or whatever you believe in, and you're on the 38th episode and then you jump to this point and you haven't found out by now, and you're asking, what the fuck is this? People that come to the padded cell. I've got extra space over in the corner because
Dave needs friends.
Yeah, I love friends. People are my favorite.
Okay, so you may want to clarify that statement. Certain people may be your favorite, but the majority of people, you didn't fill in the blank.
That was a pregnant pause.
Yeah,
I was giving you ample opportunity to respond.
Wish we're dead. Wish had never been created. Wish were swallowed. I mean, I don't know.
Well, as we all know, Dave is very much an advocate of stoicism. A very calm, rational, methodical, even keel approach, as we well know. It's been
I think
documented throughout many episodes, and if you don't believe me, check the previous 37 episodes, and that will confirm it. Or at least you'll have plenty of reference material to deny it.
Exactly.
I'm
Speaking of
trying.
past
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead, Carlos.
I was going to say, I was trying to get your watch time up. It's like, go check the previous 37 episodes, watch them in their entirety, take notes, and refer back.
But it's interesting that that's the point you were going to make, because last week's episode, although we didn't get the number of views that we have historically,
Watch time.
it had the most watch time, over 43 minutes average watch time on that video.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it was one of those in which people didn't want to catch it live or anything along those lines, but a lot of people sat and spent a lot of time watching that. So that goes to say, as far as the content and the information that having Brad on helped people stay kind of intrigued as it pertains to kind of what our thoughts were. So that was kind of cool. I haven't gone back and looked at other videos, but I want to say, I think to date, that last week's episode had the longest watch time. So kind of cool.
To me, that's the big metric, though, because it means attention. It means that people were at least observing, not just clicking on and clicking off. So to me, that's a very valuable metric.
No, agreed. And that's, like I said, I usually kind of try and peek at them right before we go live. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that really stood out, because out of other past episodes, by 2 times. Because historically we have, the same crew who consistently watches, all the time. So sometimes that kind of plays with the numbers, sometimes it doesn't. But the fact that the episode before last week, it was like 23 minutes or something, was the peak watch time. So, and Brad did get his guy, yes. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So he has that as a reference point to go back to as well, if he wants to.
I was very happy with the results. At least the first 2 rounds. I think the Chargers did well, but to get the lineman, the second best lineman, which they need if they're gonna. Again, we'll be out here for another 3 hours if we discuss the Bengals not taking Sewell from Oregon. If you have these young quarterbacks that you want to protect, keep them upright so they can throw the ball downfield to any other players, receivers, tight ends, running backs that you've invested heavily into. You think you'd draft a tackle to protect said quarterback's blind side.
Dave, who are you to question the illustrious history of the Cincinnati Bengals and their wise management decisions? The track record speaks for itself, man.
They did it once. I figured they'd do it again. Anthony Munoz was solid.
It's been a while, Dave. It's been a while.
When they picked the receiver from LSU, I'm just like, I know that made Brad beyond happy, because that was one thing he had said, that if they take Chase, guess what? That means my Dolphins don't take him. So I'm thinking, okay, you build your line that pick, you take a receiver maybe the next pick, you take the D end or somebody then, and they took the D end with the 18th pick, but they picked Waddle, and I'm like, well, if I read something where it was like 48 catches, 700 yards, and then 15 touchdowns, I think, to Waddle had between 18 and 19 at Alabama. So, it's not, and you saw that a lot. You saw a lot of these college hookups.
Yep. Connections.
You got Jalen Hurts getting Devonta Smith. You got Tua getting Waddle. So I don't know.
Well,
I
and this year,
You've got
Trevor Lawrence
Lawrence
got
and
to,
Etienne.
that's what I was going to say exactly, and you got that in the first round. So you got that in
Yep.
the
yeah.
first round this year, which is there you go. Make the guy comfortable right off the bat, right? Give him one of his guys, so it's not too
Hmm.
bad.
Trying
Yeah.
to figure out Cincinnati's almost as. I think figuring out Cincinnati is probably a little bit easier than figuring out Las Vegas. I
Mhm.
almost said Oakland because to me they're still always going to be Oakland because
I think Cincinnati considers it success as long as they don't draft a shortstop.
could be.
Yeah, it's like this year we didn't draft you. You did that? Like, look, we read the wrong book. It was the wrong one. Sorry.
I can see it now. First round draft pick, Cincinnati selects, like you said, a shortstop.
Well, the problem with being
And then
Cincinnati,
everybody
they would probably draft a retired shortstop. It's like you can't have Ozzie Smith. Wrong sport, and he's retired.
And everybody just pauses. The whole place goes silent.
Well, the problem is that if it pauses for long enough, then you'll end up with the situation I think it was Minnesota who had, because eventually the clock stops and other people can make picks while everybody's just sitting there aghast for several picks just pass. And it's somehow Bill Belichick like picks up a second overall pick because everyone's just standing there staring slack jawed. While Bill Belichick is like, I'm just waiting, I don't care. I'm just waiting. The rules say I can do this. How did you get a second overall pick?
I'm just surprised that Mac Jones like fell in their lap. I think that's really what they were ultimately hoping for.
That could
And
be a
they
very
got-
underrated pick. We'll see. We'll see how that one plays out.
Yep. It's one of those in which it'll be interesting to say the least. But if you draw up like a perfect draft board in that situation, in the way that like Kuiper and all of them were talking about, it's like they couldn't have scripted it any better.
Mhm.
He fell in their lap. So it's one of those in which does it work out for him? Who knows? I mean, he could be a bust. You don't ever know. You go back and they, if anybody actually watched the draft, they went back and played the '04 draft where it was Rivers, Manning, and Roethlisberger going in like the top 5 or 6 or whatever it was in '04. I don't remember the numbers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Kuiper was like, you mark my words, one of these guys is going to be a bust.
Mathematically, normally that's true. Like,
Correct.
if you play the law of
Correct.
averages, normally that's true.
Correct. But it was like, yep, in this case, you were wrong, sir.
Yeah, swing and a miss. That was a very shocking turn. In the long run, obviously, it played out. Everybody who grabbed a quarterback, you did fine. You did just
Yep.
fine. You got something out of it.
Yep. And only one of those three didn't win a Super Bowl. So
Yeah, and he had plenty of chances. It's one of those things where at least he
Yep.
was in contention. He was hanging around, and he's had himself a good career. So all things considered, like you could do worse.
absolutely. Jamarcus Russell.
Ryan Leaf.
I wasn't going to go that far back, but yes.
But he's still he's still one of the most infamous one, and it sticks on the Charger theme.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah. So it's like,
No offense, Dave.
Oh, don't worry about that. They've had plenty of wonderful talent they've drafted. So I think it was about 10 picks away in that second round, and Asante Samuel Jr. was still there. I'm like, God, please let him get there. They still need corner. The guy they signed from your Broncos, Chris Harris, last year, his deal. Got rid of Casey Hayward. You need, and it's everyone. It's just, it doesn't even matter if you've got, your cupboard is overflowing. You need corners. You need safeties. Obviously, the ground game in the league is Derrick Henry and then everyone else. You need secondary to combat the air raid type offenses with Pat Mahomes and etc. So when he got there, and I'm like, please pick him, please, and they did. I got excited. That's one of the first times in a long time. I'm like, finally, somebody is picking correctly here. You're picking both the best player and you're filling an immediate need. So I was
Well,
happy.
until it's
I know they got a receiver, I think, from Tennessee in the third round. I was hoping they'd go the tight end from Boston College. He was still out there, and I was like, perfect. It sets up perfectly. And then they got some guy that, and I think the later third or early fourth that caught like about like 28 balls in college. A tight end from Georgia. I'm like, oh, that's the aerial target we need for the young quarterback. Somebody caught 28 balls in 4 years. Okay,
well,
so
something could have sparked with them or whatnot. Maybe that offense didn't use them to their ability and things along those lines. I
mhm.
mean, I'm not trying to justify it by any stretch of the imagination because let's be realistic. We can all be armchair GMs in those situations and
Yeah,
think that who's the best and things along those lines. I was still hoping for something to come out of the draft with Rodgers, and I'm still hoping that somehow that still comes to fruition in some shape, form, or fashion. But it's one of those in which I still think Drew Lock is going to have to fight for his job with Bridgewater. It's not an open and shut case if they do nothing else as it pertains to a quarterback. I like the pick in the first round and Surtain. Like I said, the name is a legacy, so to speak. The
mhm.
kid's fantastic corner. Does Denver still need secondary help? Yes, but they spent decent money in free agency though to fill that need. So it's like, is that one of those in which does he become a starter or does he come in on third down type situation to kind of learn some things or whatever? Uh, I do like the fact that they did draft a running back. They at least waited till the second round. Um, North Carolina State, North Carolina, something along those lines. I can't remember what the kid's name is,
Devonta Williams.
but I read a few scouting reports and they're saying that the kid is good.
Hmm.
So it's one of those in which that was also a need. Uh, Outside of that, I haven't gone back through and paid attention to any of the other picks in the later rounds. But the fact that Denver did trade up in the second round to get there, obviously that was their guy from a running back perspective. So Denver did trade up to snag him in the second round. So it's one of those you hope it kind of works out in that situation.
I think they got a lineman too from and the only reason I remember it's because of where he's from, Wisconsin Whitewater. I think that Quinn Miners, something like that. And I think again, you look at that Ali Mopert, I think he is for Tampa Bay. Came out of a small school. Again, when you put the tape on, it looks like he's Incredible Hulk amongst mere mortals. So you always wonder how that's going to translate to actual like equal competition, as it were. I think again, I know they're not in that old zone blocking scheme where it's the one cut downhill, but whatever they've got there for an offense now, if he fits it, they need linemen. I mean, again,
Well, yeah, they just lost Jawan James too.
and I'm trying to think of their own line coach because Garrett Bowles went from somebody who was basically on his way out to in a career or in a contract year having the best season I'm sure he'll ever have,
Yep.
and then getting a contract. So yeah, but that I think it's Javonte Williams from North Carolina, that running back. He reminds me of another running back that's big, powerful, road grader that came out in about '93, I think it was, and got drafted by a team further out west in the southern reaches of California.
Okay.
Mr. Natron means.
I knew who you were talking about. I'm
Well,
not.
The super pregnant pause was
I didn't know who you were talking about, but I figured you'd get to it eventually. I was quite content to enjoy the pregnant pause on that one.
and Ty. Yes, I am. I like the Jags. I like them early on more so than the last handful of years, and it has nothing to do with their successes or failures on the field. It's when you had Brunell, Jimmy Smith, McCardle, Kyle Brady, Baselli, Natron. You had Andre Rison for a hot minute in there before he had all kinds of. He was jumping around that 96, 97 year. Um, Kevin Hardy, Tony Brackens. You had just this wide collection of, for me, top tier talent. And it was just patch wise that there's no better patch I think you can get other than like a 75th anniversary, a 100th anniversary, something like that, where it's team specific. And if you pull the Jaguar, something like right out that Jaguar, the tail, the head, the body, that is one of the coolest patches you can get on a card.
I don't think you
So
can get too many crazy patches in the NFL, can you?
Not really.
Yeah,
no,
yeah, I didn't think so because I was just quickly thinking in my head, going through the teams in my head quickly, and I was like, no, not really. It's not a
like
Tampa
sport that makes.
Bay, the Tampa Bay logo,
Yeah,
the Panther head or the Panther face. The only problem is that's usually like a almost like a vinyl type thing.
yep,
yeah,
It's not really a patch.
yeah.
Uh, you've got the Jag, and then outside of that, you've
just
got
like I think
Patriots. You have the Pats.
the Viking head. I think you can get there's
Yes.
some nice Randy Moss stuff with that on there. Rams, I mean it nothing really. You can get the cool little swirl, but I mean that's just two colors.
Yeah.
Yep.
Colts nothing, Jets nothing. Niners it depends. I mean you can get some where it's that four color, where the red, the white, that gold, and then the black.
Yeah,
Ram,
I think
Rams.
overall it's a sport where the memorabilia isn't going to be what's going to sell you. I think it's different sports will have different things because we know that. Because we know Bob showed like the one patch he picked up, which was a really nice piece,
Yeah.
and you can get pieces like that. It's sport dependent. That's
Yep.
one of the things that like Matt enjoys when he goes and looks at the hockey stuff because certain logos and things, there are pieces you can pull off of a hockey jersey because there's real estate and there's a bunch of different patches they'll put on certain players and stuff, and you can get some stuff that looks kind of neat
Hmm.
just because of the nature of patches. That's really what it
Yep.
is. But in football, it's like usually you don't get, unless they do something special, like you said, like a 75th anniversary or something where they'll put a special patch on there specifically for an event or something.
Hmm.
Most of the teams will have pretty straightforward memorabilia. You're not going to sell them memorabilia. It's got to be, you got to come up with something else cool to make it interesting.
Hmm.
Yep. Yep. Nothing beats hockey in the patch world. Nothing.
Yeah. The Blackhawks, I think rule that roost at the top of the
Hmm.
food chain because the Blackhawk itself has like ridiculous colors potential depending on the piece you get.
Yeah, it's literally a rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I've got a
And
buddy in
don't forget
Cal.
that thread count.
Mm.
Ooh,
The thread count. Can't forget about the thread count.
Heaven forbid. My goodness.
That was a thing back in the early prime of our YouTube days of always talking about thread count.
Yeah, it constantly, constantly. I've got a buddy who's from Chicago that lives up here, and I know he does some breaking through like a Facebook group, and whenever he's in the store, we'll talk cards. And he's a huge Jonathan Taves
Okay.
collector, and so anytime I'm scouring the Facebook world or wherever, and I see like something to him or even Kane, I'll throw Kane his way. Just like, here's the patch you want. You make that judgment. I don't care if you say no. I'm thinking you. I saw it. I said, whatever, do what you want. And I don't think he's picked anything up yet, but he had one. He's like, I've wanted that from that guy. We had number to 10 out of Artifacts, which that's his jam. He loves the Artifacts patches.
They made some good stuff. I've been picking up some pieces lately. They've made some good stuff.
So but he wanted, I don't know if it's a 101 or a 10, but I know it was strong. About 500-600, and he's just like, I've tried to talk him down a little, and I can't get him to budge over a number of years. And I'm like, well, again, don't buy one or two items. I'm giving the advice to others that I should be taking. So
I was about to point it out if you hadn't mentioned it.
Going back to the armchair general manager concept.
Yeah, very much so. And he's always in agreement too. He's like, yeah, I know. I didn't get that, or I didn't buy this box or whatever. It's like I could afford it, or wouldn't have to worry about it. I'm like, well, just remember that down the road when that card pops, or that contact that dude now. So at least in Messenger, you've got him. You've got him in there. So like, okay, I got the money. Boom, try to make a deal. But yeah, hockey, even the Red Wings, because it's just the two color.
Yeah.
Even the Leafs, the two color, it is just gorgeous.
You can get because you can get the wheel. You can get certain components of it that'll still give you. It'll give you texture. Let's call it that. It'll give you some texture to the patch, so that it's not just one or two colors and that's it. You can get a little bit of design, a little bit of flourish in there, something.
Yeah, unlike Colts jersey where you have a blue and a white, and it's blue basic mesh jersey, and then white is going to be that paint.
Yep.
Vinyl. It's like, oh wow, yippee, hooray!
Yeah, I think that's where football has to try to compensate for it by having designs that incorporate other things.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find different ways of making it interesting, which you can do. That's not necessarily a bad thing because it forces the manufacturers to get creative, come up with something to make it interesting. Then you don't have that. You can't lean on it. You can't use it as a crutch. You have to find something else to do.
Yeah.
That's where the helmet pieces and the face mask pieces come into play. Not that it adds color or additional breaks or anything along those lines from a patch perspective, but it's a change in the fact that it's not just a good old jersey or the intent of providing what they call a patch.
Yep. Going back though, I did enjoy that we talked about a moment. I kind of envisioning now Dave being the great dispenser of advice. That's literally just advice based on the opposite of what he does. He goes, so listen, focus. You can't collect too many players. You got to focus in on a handful and then budget accordingly. And you got to keep an even keel. You can't let YouTube videos get to you. You got to keep an even keel. And the last thing in the world that you need to be doing is going out into the wilderness and screaming out into the night. Don't do that. It's like literally the opposite of whatever Dave does. It's like, okay, so like when I do the other thing, go the other direction.
That is true.
The things that we figure out about Dave as we continually progress in this world of life and card collecting and friendship building. What's going to be next, Carlos?
Oh, listen, the multiverse grows daily, Steve. The multiverse grows daily. And the backstory just gets fleshed out. We learn more and more. Slowly over time. Eventually we'll find out that Dave's passionate love of his profession, what happened is that at one point he was buried underneath, frozen groceries for like 6 days with only the melted ice to drink from to survive. And that traumatized him to this day.
So my question is going to be, is it going to be you or Bobby who write his autobiography?
Well, the autobiography has to be Dave because the auto part has to be self-penned. But a biography, well, maybe we'll co-author.
No, we're gonna revamp the terminology of autobiography, is what I'm getting at.
So we'll ghostwrite his autobiography.
Exactly.
It's like, I, Amish Dave Archer. It's like, are you referring to yourself in third person? I, Amish Dave Archer.
As long as it's not in fourth person, I guess we're okay.
I think third person will suffice. I think third person will suffice.
I would agree. I would agree.
And you could still call it the autobiography. All you'd have to do is, and again, you'd have to probably pay somebody with wooden nickels or something to watch all the videos up until this point. You just piecemeal everything together and go from there.
Well, what's going to happen is that probably at one point, maybe we'll get a couple of chapters in and then we'll get kind of lazy and we'll just commission it to like the third world. the entire latter portion of it will be like broken English, and we'll like hire individual people to write individual chapters, so there will be no cohesion. It'll be like these self-contained things. He goes,
every chapter will have a Nigerian prince and spending $2,000 and
we'll give you $5 million. Yep.
Yeah.
Didn't I just read that before?
It's like chapter 27 was written by a guy who's one of those guys who, as soon as he hears some background noise, starts typing it out. Why are there like random song lyrics and conversations that have nothing to do with the narrative? And then it just snaps back into the narrative. What happened there?
And then then of course the last chapter. This is called random. Sums up this individual. This sums up my life. Random.
The last chapter will just be a big long equation. If you can figure it out, it'll all make sense in the end.
Then thus we go back to the Pythagorean theorem.
Oh, the Pythagorean theorem will be how we begin. We'll proceed from there.
Sine, cosine, and tangent will have to be in there somewhere because those are my nemesis from back in the old high school days. I was not a fan of
Trig.
Yeah. Well, I will personally write chapter 10 for you, Dave, and it'll just be called General Musings, but it'll actually be 15 pages of and then ... and then ... and then ... And people will think it will end, but it'll actually go the whole 15 pages.
And the last one, and then ... again.
You know what?
Chapter 16.
You know
and
it.
again.
And again. It'll be a lovely anthology of it'll be less a fully fleshed out autobiography in the traditional sense. It'll fit kind of your artistic soul, Dave. It'll be like a mishmash, a hodgepodge, an anthology of miscellaneous crap we threw in there. Why is there like a chapter of like photocopied receipts? Look, man, it fits. Just roll with it.
It was a slow day. Come on now.
It's like, look, we ran out of budget for that chapter. We just had some receipts lying around, so that's what you get.
No, that chapter would have to be early on in the book, Ty. Ramen noodles and chicken sandwiches. That'd have to be closer to the front.
Yeah, it'd be like oats and chicken sandwiches.
Yeah, because that's like contextual. That's like important.
That would be like the only chapter Dave writes himself. He goes, no, the chicken sandwich chapter's mine. This is how we earn the auto in autobiography.
65 pages later.
It's like, what happened here? It's like, I have no idea what occurred, but the prose on this is tremendous. But it's about chicken sandwich. You can't argue with the prose, man. There's some clear passion here. Like, I can see it.
It's always fun to poke on Dave a little bit from time to time. Gives him at least a chance to smile and laugh a little bit and get past the dundrums of the day, so he says frequently.
Doldrums.
Doldrums, dundrums. What the hell's the difference?
Well, at this point, Dave, it is the life you have chosen.
This is cool.
I went out of my way. I lived that life in the early part of my career, and I explicitly did everything in my power to get out of it. I might have been buried alive in it for a while, but I dug my way out.
That's what I'm looking at now. That we bought or not we, I say the store owners, the family bought a Shopko building.
Okay.
and that's where they're gonna move. And I don't know. I think they want to be there October 1st because the store's anniversary sale stuff is mid to late October,
Hmm.
and it is a nightmare. It is a legit nightmare of just one of the owners pretty much pushing it through. Nobody else wants to do anything with it
Hmm.
because while there's some antiquated and outdated stuff at the store, your his grandiose idea is summers are busy time. We're and now again with Canada, the border still being closed. If people can't go up from Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, Minnesota up to Canada to camp, fish, or do whatever they do up there, they come up here because it's again basically the next best thing.
Hmm.
So last summer was stupid busy. I imagine this summer is going to even be worse. He wants all of us at some point near the back half of the summer to start packaging stuff up and moving it down to the new building. I'm like, you don't have enough people to fill out the shifts to work now.
Hmm.
There are more shifts coming in summer when the hours are extended. How in the absolute fuck of all fucks are we going to pack stuff up when we get freight in, try to do our jobs, order everything else while you sit in the office and sit on your cell phone and work phone all day talking about your dock business and all this other bullshit? Please explain this to me. And he, oh, it's going to be great. Well, everybody's going to work together. And I don't think you're going to have anybody here by the end of the summer.
Hmm.
Nobody will be working there at all.
Yeah.
And it just, everybody that's been there for any amount of time that has any intelligence, which it's counterproductive. And then at this point where we've been there a while, but the people that got out are the smart ones. Nobody looks forward to this whatsoever. And it's just going to be a wonderful, wonderful summer of misery, doom, and I'm sure some sort of fight at some point. And I'm sure I will be somewhere near that fight, possibly even in it. Because
Possibly.
allegedly, my
Mm.
my patience level already is pretty much melted away to nothing. I know. Again, I'm glad you this, and I don't want to tell any tales out of school, but
Oh, these are some shocking revelations, Dave. Shocking revelations.
Right.
I know. So in the I worked the first chunk of my career in retail in a variety of things. I never worked in a supermarket, but I did work in a supermarket, and I'll explain what I mean. I worked in the wine store because the supermarket itself has these little like they're kiosks, but there's also like little mini stores inside the main supermarket. So it was a larger chain called Longo's around here. So they've got a whole chain of stores, and inside of it you have what they call wine rack. So wine rack is their wine store, and it's literally a store inside a store because you can actually shut it. It's got its own. It doesn't have an outside entrance, but it had an inside entrance. So I worked there for just under a year. To the point that I was doing the ordering. I was basically doing the assistant manager crap, except getting paid like a peasant, as you do. But while I was in the course of doing that, I would basically, because during the day it's very quiet. You get a lot of soccer moms and stuff during the afternoon, but for the most part it's dead. If you're doing the beginning shift, you're sitting there. You know what you're doing? You're cleaning bottles. You're dusting them. You're grabbing some boxes and putting some stuff up there, putting some labels on. Like you're just killing time most of the time. But what you do is you get a chance to chat with cashiers who are directly in front of you because they try to position it so that as you come out of the cash, oh, the wine store's right there. Oh, let me go pick up a bottle on my way out the door, kind of thing. But then the other thing you talk to the guys that are over in the frozen foods aisles and stuff like that are hanging out. And some of those guys had been there for years. But you go and you chat with them and you can kind of tell the ones that have been at it for a long time because they do their job, but they're like, if I could be doing anything else, I'd rather be doing that. I'm kind of here because I'm here. And then there are the younger guys who is like, this is a transitional thing. This is what they're doing at this stage while they're in school. And then when the time comes, they go out and they rotate. But the long timers are the ones who are there season after season, year after year. So over the course of time, you go in and you listen and you get a chance to chat with them because they're happy just to have somebody talking to them because like I got time. So I sat there and chatted with them. But one of the things that I said to him is like, so how long have you been at this? Like, oh, I've been at this 15 years. He goes, so how's that working out for you? He goes, that's so great. But they're in that same boat where that at this point now they're stuck in it. Like, if you're at it for 15 years, you're not going anywhere. You're pretty much a lifer at that stage. But that's not the life to be a lifer in. And that's kind of the thing. It's like, no, that's a job you do for a period of time that you do it and then get out of it to do something else. Even in the wine store, I was doing it. There's some folks that have been in the wine store for years, but I was like, nope, I'm doing this now because I'm basically just biding my time until the next thing, and then I'll go to the next thing, go to the next thing. But I've done all the jobs that people hate. I've done retail, which sucks. I've done call centers, which drives people nuts. I did that for years. That sucks. And then it's now at this time where I get to do the boring office gig. But it's like, no, it works fine, pays decent. But you have to be planning to get out of it because I knew a buddy of mine who was a lifer in a grocery store. Now, and he always complain about it. I was like, dude, you've been at this for 25 years. So it's like at this stage in the game, like, I don't know what's left for you to complain about. Like you're in until you retire. The good news is that I think they had a decent retirement plan. So now he's just kind of biding his time to retirement, but it's like, this is it, man. Once you're stuck in, you don't get out if you're at it long enough.
I think, at least with Dave, I don't think he minds the job. He hates the people and he hates the leaders.
So basically 2/3 of the job is like, guys, I love the frozen chicken. It's like, I love the frozen peas. I like hanging out. It's great.
Yeah, there's the customers where you like them because when you actually get to know them, they've got a snarky sense of humor. Then they can, and some of them surprise you. It's like, oh, this person's probably a prude or got some like, what is it, Nancy Worth, Sally Worth, whatever in the purse or something, and then they're like, you see that woman over there? I'm like, yeah, I hate that cunt. What? Okay. Interesting. So, I mean, you learn some of that, and then there's people, the ones, I don't know, there's so many that I hate. I know, again, I'm glad people are sitting down.
Like this is just a day of revelation, Steve. Like, I don't know how many revelations can we handle in one night.
I don't know. I think this broadcast is going to go viral.
It's like, dang, I might have to refill my beer, Dave. Jeez, good Lord.
We've got people up here, and again, I don't know. Probably down in Texas, it's different. If people are feeding animals, that's probably livestock.
His name's Cletus. He has a name. God damn it. He's not livestock. Jesus.
Bertha Faye.
He's a human being, allegedly. Please continue.
I don't know how much wildlife, and I'm fairly certain there's not much around the Greater Toronto area.
Well, I'm not in the Greater Toronto area. Covers a lot of ground because we've got we're over beside Oakville, which actually has a lot of green space.
Okay.
So you will randomly find, like, how did you get here? I used to, on the way to work, there would be like these wooded areas where you find like a deer. I'm like, why are you here? You got nothing better to do? You too good for your home? Go home.
There's people up here that will buy, and it's specifically packaged that says deer food on it. 50-pound bag. There's whole corn, there's cracked corn, and there's black oil sunflower seeds. 50-pound bag.
Nice.
I guess I don't mind too much if you feed birds and it's a wide array. That's something different. If it's ravens and pigeons, that's crap. Nobody cares about them. But deer, and they'll call them their pet. I'm like, that's not your pet. That's a wild animal. Well, I love them. I'm like, you're an idiot. That it's a deer. it's they've been around for quite a while now. Just because you moved up here, you live in the woods, get a dog, get a cat. Don't get anything. That deer is not your pet.
Shoot the deer. Makes good meat. Just saying.
Venison steaks, venison sausage. Do that. Then last week or 2 weeks ago, I came up there to carry out because we still do the old carry out. Somebody needs
I
help
got
with
the
it.
I got the impression, even though I hadn't heard too much about your store, I got the impression from it. It sounds like it's not really a chain. It's like an independently owned grocery store, or is it a chain?
It's the family owns it. There's
Okay.
one here. There's one in a town 25 miles from here. One that's about 40 miles. One that's about it's right near Lake Superior. Shockingly,
Look at you. I'm surprised you didn't
So
relocate the Lake Superior location. It's like, bring me
that
closer to my people.
that's the most outdated, decrepit one because I remember we, we'll get a lot of stuff here, and then from there it gets parceled out to all these other stores. I remember it must have been.
So you're saying you're the flagship store, Dave?
It's unfortunate we are the flagship.
You are
store.
captaining the flagship store and you're still complaining? My God.
It is horrible. It is because none of the other stores do anything. It's not like they get something that we need. It's we've got something and we've got to push it on them, or they. Why don't you guys just order it for us for there? It's like, well, why don't you guys order it? You don't want to pay for it,
I
so
like this logic. This is some sound logic. It's like, well, we could order it, or you could order it.
and that's what usually happens. But I remember going to that store over in Silver Bay, which is right by Lake Superior, dropping off pizzas because we got a pallet or two pallets of pizzas, and Silver Bay needed them. And this was, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. Drove the Zups van over there, and going in like the front, it was like your 1980s grocery store. But you look at the floor, and there's about 14 tiles missing. Another like 7 were cracked or broken in half. I couldn't find anybody in there. I'm like, this is 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon. I'm like, where is somebody, even a customer? I don't care. Just is there any signs of life? Then you go in the back, and it's just like the narrow hallway from like an old, like you think of an old office building. Okay, office here, walk down there, and then there's like 3 people in one room. I'm like, I got pizzas for you guys. Who are you? From Ely. I got pizzas. Where do you want me to put them? I've been up since 4. We're going on 12 hours now, and let's figure something out. And the owner is like, don't hit my car. I'm like, I'm 6 feet away from it.
Here, I got an idea, sir. I'm going to put these right here in the front and you freaking carry them in. I'm leaving.
Oh, that's the worst part about a lot of the owners. They just have the sense of entitlement. That silver spoon, it never dangles too far from their lips. It just
Dave, based on the description, we got to talk about it's fake silver. Like it's it's plated over tin at that point. It's not actual silver.
aluminum foil.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should probably let them know. It's like, guys, the silver spoon thing. It's like there is no spoon. You just bend it.
It's just yeah. I could if we had like when we got the freight in and we could do that at night. I'd love that. It's not
Okay,
like
but let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question because I did this. I did a 6-month stint years back now at a pharmacy when I was working in between bank and in between one bank and another. I did a 6-month stint in the pharmacy and I worked graveyard shift. Now, if you don't like people, Dave, graveyard shift will do it, but it'll wreck your sleep pattern for the rest of your life. And my sleep pattern wasn't that great. That was maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, and it's like I was living on Japan time. I don't know if you want to do that one, but the good news is you don't have to deal with a lot of people.
No, that's the good part. But I've done. I'm trying to think. Last year, it must have been right the week after like stuff got shut down here in March. We were able to get like the great boss I've got said order heavy, and I said okay, whatever, because we were able to get like the one last shot of stuff before everything was starting to get like sort of rationed.
Mhm.
So I had I think 7 or 8 pallets worth of stuff for just the freezer, and of course he came out and tried to help me near the end, but it took probably 2 hours to break down for me those 8 pallets. And
Mhm.
then again, I'm putting ice cream couple in a couple shopping carts, putting all that stuff. So then later on, I can go get it and do it, and then putting all the stuff, stack it up in front of the doors. So I'd rather do that and just be alone. And that was coming off of I think I worked 7 to 1 in the morning.
Mhm.
So going back at like 8:30 at night after trying to get a nap in, it wasn't bad, but that's yeah, that wouldn't be something I'd want to. I don't know.
Finishing at 1 in the morning is pretty rough. The shift they had, it was 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. So it was a 10-hour shift. And we did 4 days on, 4 days off. So you do now. Unfortunately, that really meant that you didn't quite get full time because 4 days on, 4 days off didn't actually add up. You never actually racked up enough hours to be full time. But you'd be on your feet for 10 hours, and the only customers you're going to have in the evening are people who absolutely have to be out there. It's like, who's buying milk at 3 in the morning? Why? And usually I was the one who had to go do the cash because the other guys would whine about it. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll do the damn cash. But I wouldn't stand there at the cash. I'd be taking stuff out and putting it away. And then at some point we had a security guard who would page us to the front. And usually we got either a young guy who I think was maybe reading too many gun magazines and like thought himself pretty fancy there. And then we had like a really old guy where I'm like, what are you going to do? If anyone tries to steal anything, what are you going to do? Give him a stern talking to? I was just like, super nice guy, but I was just sitting there like, for God's sake, what is this? I may as well do it myself. Give me the damn nightstick. I'll do it myself. It was just hilarious. Like I said, it wasn't a long time because like it was between jobs. I didn't want to take I didn't want to take unemployment because I had quit the one job and I didn't immediately have another one. It's like, all right, let me go work for a bit. But the work sucks. But it was in the middle of the night, so it's like, yeah, you're living on Japan time at that point. By the time you get home and you get to bed, it's early afternoon. Then you got to sleep until late, and then you get up and do it all again.
Yeah, that'd be the big change of like trying to figure out you go from waking up incredibly early to any other time. 'Cause that's all I've done in the past 7 or 8 years at least. I think I've had one closing shift maybe in the last decade.
I think if it's not your sensibility, I would avoid it. I always
Mhm.
liked later shifts anyway, just because it was more comfortable.
Mhm.
Now working in an office, morning, people expect you to be up. You gotta. My schedule is not dissimilar to Steve's in the sense of COVID time working from home. I do get to sleep in a little bit, which is nice. That's not, it's good. Um, but I'm a night owl anyway, so it's still tricky. Be like, oh, morning, Jesus. So it was nice when I had a little bit of flex time because I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna roll in at like 9:45. Yeah, I'll be in the office 9:45. Just roll in casually. I could technically do that now, but at some point my boss would be like, "Where are you?" And they could just ping you now and be like, "Damn it."
No, I don't mind the waking up early because again, you get done early. That's the best part. And then with Naomi in sports and whatnot, that it allows me to be there if she wants to go and throw the ball or do whatever, shoot hoops or whatnot.
Hmm.
I can do that instead of oh, I'm working till 4, I'm working till 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever. That's one thing it's a good part about the job, which is indirectly, 'cause it's just the time I can spend with her, and instead of spending at the store and listening to just people bitch and moan and the prices are too much. Well, don't buy it. Nobody's forcing you to buy fucking food here.
Yeah, nobody's forcing you to watch that YouTube video. You're right.
Yeah, but take my advice.
Go on, Dave, as you were saying. Please continue. On a related note, Buddy gave up on his dream of getting more money. Victory is mine.
Good deal. Congrats.
Yes. Still a fair chunk of change, but it's a nice card. It's a nice card.
And I get
which will be spoiled on Instagram at some point in time. FYI, for those who follow Carlos.
Yeah, it'll be a rainbow shot. I'll get the cards on there because it's a nice piece to add. Oh, it's uncut, so there's a hint for anybody that knows what I'm referring to.
No, Carlos, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yep.
A sheet of cards, an uncut sheet.
Mm-hmm.
The 90.
That may be pushing it. What's going on, Brad?
So, Brad, we were talking about you earlier. Your ears are burning.
No, that was like 30 minutes ago.
I said earlier.
That's like a lifetime during this
Yeah,
show. But yeah, we were talking about the draft a little bit, Brad, and how you were probably excited about getting Waddle.
All in all, I would say for folks that are less into it, who want to just kind of listen casually, it was a good show, though, because then you get a little bit of insight. Because it's one of those things, like I say, I watch, and I talked about a little bit on the stream on Friday. I watch enough football where if I really wanted to get into it, it wouldn't be much of a stretch. So I'm an informed casual viewer, but I'm not going to get into that kind of depth. I just don't have the energy to devote. I will say for the games now, I still enjoy watching sports, but it's like I just don't have the energy to get into it in the depth that I once did. I'd rather just kind of watch the sport, enjoy the games, and then if I'm going to get deep into something, I'll get into the cards or I'll get into something else that interests me, because it's like time is the one asset that I value almost above all else right now. So it's like, that's the one thing I want. I'd rather just use the time on something that interests me. And it's like, if I don't want to put the energy into that thing, it's not worth the time.
One, which I can definitely relate to, because, historically for me, the draft was all about, okay, who's going to be the guys that you go after when you're open product?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because for years, that's what I did. I opened a lot of product. And it's always nice to know what to look for going into it, because any of your first round guys or, anybody who's drafted in the later rounds that, starts really having a good season, you're kind of informed as far as what to look for as you're opening packs and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, at least over the last couple of years, it's been more focused on my team specifically. It's like, okay, what are we doing to improve the team? However, I'm not informed enough to know whether or not some of the picks that they go after, if they actually are worthwhile, things along those lines, because I don't go in that level of depth. Outside of the top tier guys that kind of going into the draft, I don't know a lot of the other guys, because I don't follow the top 100 and all this other kind of stuff, or pay attention to the mock drafts and stuff along those lines. But I know enough to be dangerous, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is why when Dave brought up the whole topic for last week's episode, I'm like, we need somebody who can actually, you can have a more in-depth conversation with. I can add some context, because I do love the game and I do know some of the top tier guys and things along those lines, but you need somebody who really enjoys that aspect of the game and really focuses on that part uh, and can really add some value because my my value adds were minimal at best.
That is one area where I kind of wish I had the energy to watch the college game a little bit more closely. That would be a way of getting a little bit of insight without having to do like a lot of deep dive reading into it. Because I do enjoy watching the college games, but I do run late hours on Fridays normally. Like not even live stream, just in general. I find my mind works really well in the evening, so that's when I get a lot of my ideas and I start putting things together and stringing together some ideas. So I'm sitting there like, okay, but then Saturday, morning or midday or whatever, it's like, I'm kind of tired. I want to slowly wind into my Saturday. If you got kids, that's a different conversation. You got small kids, well then good luck to you. You're probably not watching college football anyway. You're probably busy with the kids. So like it works a different way. But it just depends.
Yeah, that's how it was years ago.
Yeah.
Mine is 14, so there's times in which they sleep till noon,
Yeah.
but they're also up till 1 or 2.
Yeah. So that was the thing. Even from my teens onwards, that's basically how it ran. So I was always running that schedule for a very long time. So for me, it was like, okay. And in fairness, that's probably one where I'll blame Carlos Sr. because he's up late watching movies. So I'm like, all right, it's you. It's your fault. Because my mom and my brother are the ones who can sleep like this. They're out like a light, it's done. It takes me a while to wind down and actually fall asleep. I can be in bed, but I'm still going to be awake. But it's like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, I have moments in which it's like that, but I'll watch TV, and when I start feeling like I'm like this close to starting to doze off type scenario, it's like I'll shut down. And there's times in which it's like a snap, like you kind of
Mm-hmm.
mentioned about your brother, but other times it's like you sit there and you're tired, but yet then your mind starts wandering and you're going, mother effer.
Mm-hmm.
Will you just shut the F up, please, and let me go to sleep? And it's amazing where your mind goes as you're trying to doze off to sleep. The things that pop into your head out of the middle of freaking nowhere, and you're going, why the hell am I thinking about this? Where the hell did this come from? Maybe it's just me. Dave's over here shaking his head, so I'm guessing he can attest to that feeling at times.
That was this morning. I don't know what kind of dream I had, but I was up at 10 after 3. My alarm doesn't go off till 5:40.
No, what you just described. That's the worst. When you have an alarm and you get up like an hour ish before, and you're like, even if I fall back asleep, this is going to be so irritating.
Yep.
It's going to feel like half a second, and then boom, the alarm goes off. I'm like, I hate everything about life.
I'm like, I gotta get back to sleep, but then I start scrolling through Facebook, start looking at eBay, and the perfect part was there was a Paul Correa StarQuest Gold going off. Like, literally as I got up, and I'm like, oh, that's going off like 3 minutes left. I'm like, well, at least I'll watch that. And then you start looking through eBay and looking at like ESPN, and it was like 4 o'clock, and I'm like, okay, I gotta get back to sleep. We got the show tonight, got practice at 5. I'm like, if I don't get at least this 90 minutes of sleep here, it is going to be extremely rough. Not that it usually isn't for me, but it's going to be like magnified by like 20 to 100 fold. So I'm glad and like you said, it's the worst because it goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can feel it wasn't bad. I felt like I was like, okay, I felt like I got some more rest. Usually it feels like you're even more empty, and you're like, what the hell? I got
that's basically it though. Is that because because my mom, like I said, she sleeps like a light. For her, it's like it's easy, and I'm like, it's like, madam, for the last time, I haven't been well rested since I was like 12. Okay, like the tank will never be full again. It just doesn't ever get filled. I can't. It's not so much sleep, it's a coma. If I'm lucky and I stay in bed, it's a coma. It's not sleep. I don't come out of it refreshed. That doesn't happen. And the problem with that sleep schedule is that the only time I could actually fall asleep like a light, I know there is a specific time. Yeah, like 1 PM when I can't afford it. I'm doing something. I can't. That's the moment where in my chair I could literally fall asleep and just stay there for like 5 hours and just have a 5-hour nap. And I'm like, I can't afford it. I have to stay awake. And this is the time when it's like, no, right now I could totally take a nap and get like 4 hours of sleep right now. Nope, can't do it.
Damn work always get in the way. What the hell?
This is what I've been saying for years. It's like, guys, my happiness is being directly infringed by this whole earning a living thing, being an adult.
Yeah, adulting sucks.
Just straight up.
Yep. And on that note, we are coming up 10 minutes to the 3-hour mark. I'm looking out after you, Dave, since, we were really trying to focus more on the 3-hour mark this go round because you need your beauty sleep.
That will be Rick Van Winkle.
I don't think he can afford 6 solid months uninterrupted.
That's true, too.
You're being generous on the low end.
Well, if we get you in a hyperbaric chamber, if we can get you in the padded room with complete silence, at least you can take a shot at it.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. All the conditions would have to be optimal.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'll pose it to the chat if anybody has anything else that they want to bring up or chit chat about before we call it an evening. Go ahead and throw it out there. If not, we will wrap it up a few minutes early for this week. So Dave maybe won't be in a grumpy mood tomorrow. Oh, no, wait, that's a figment of my imagination. That won't happen.
I did see, I think, I don't know if it's 0102 or I think 0102, Kramer's Choice Brodeur sold for, I was outbid, and I had bid strong. So, 41, and I don't know what it ended for, but, so when we say there's deals, we notate that with a lot of stuff is still selling stronger than usual. And again, it's not always the Lucas or whoever the flavor of the month is for all these players, or the Kobe's, Jordans, etc. There's still some stuff that's selling very strong that you wouldn't expect. Or you wouldn't expect to the level of strength it's selling.
I know Carlos can attest to that with said purchase.
Well, that one I can't pretend to be too shocked because it has been literally years since it's come up. So it was one of those things where we have no bearing. And when I tell you guys the final price, it's going to be like, it's not low, but it doesn't feel completely out of whack for what you might think. So I think I ended up in about probably where I should have.
265.
You're not far.
Okay. And the only reason why I threw that out there is because, I know what card you're alluding to, and I remember the price vaguely.
Yep.
So
you're not far off. You're actually fairly close.
I remember the buy it now best offer price. So
yeah.
Well, that's what I was getting at. That's why I threw that out there.
Yeah. I got a good gauge when, and actually maybe this would be a good one. We'll throw a tip to everybody here at the end of the podcast. Those of you who stuck around. So here's a tip. A good way, if you've got somebody who's got a card that you're interested in, but it's got a maybe kind of a high buy it now. So again, you assess this and you think, it's a little bit high. You're willing to go there, but maybe you want to feel it out a little bit. It is worthwhile reaching ahead of time. So prior to making the offer, I reached out and I said, okay, look, what ballpark are you reaching in? The answer I got was a bit wishy-washy, but what it did tell me also is that they weren't like hell bent on this price.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most important thing I got. It was like a block of text, like it had no spacing or punctuation. So it was kind of painful to read. But in the course of reading this block of text, I got the gist that they didn't actually know what they wanted to get for it. They just didn't want to feel like they shortchanged themselves, so they left. So they went high on the buy it now and left the best offer, and then canceled out low ball offers so that they would be like. So it's like, look, if you make an offer and you get rejected, you're going too low. I created a bit of a window, and then I'm going to see what happens. If you want to make an offer, I'll reply within the 2 days. So I go, okay, so now I kind of know where I'm at. So let me take a stab here in the dark and shoot for a number that, of course, I'd love to have gotten it cheaper, but it's a number I'm comfortable with. And if I need to go up, I left myself room to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as it turns out, there were no other offers within about the 2 days. The 2 days would have run out in about an hour. So
Okay.
with about an hour left on the clock, they accepted it. I got no counters. So sometimes it works.
Yep. Oh, good piece of advice, though.
You can get a feel. You can get a feel for where the seller's at, because sometimes if they're not hell bent on it, maybe they've got a little room with it. If you led with it and then they see, oh, okay, so the same person who asked is the same person who made the offer. Okay, now I understand kind of where they're at as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, very true. So,
That was one that came up this morning, and I showed Vinny what it was. And I always come at it with, okay, I've only really searched for Brodeur for a year. I haven't the depth and the knowledge and the length of time collecting them as others have, and I'll always say that because it's the truth. But this is one I haven't seen in the year.
Mhm.
And it had buy now best offer, so I'm shooting right away. I go low, about half the price, just to see you instantly declined. Okay. Come up like $20. Instantly declined. Come up like 25. Instantly declined. I'm like, okay, now where are we at? Because I'm burning through these offers within a minute.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I came up with another one. I don't know how far it was off. It must have been like 40 lower than the buy it now price, and instantly declined. I'm like, oh shit. Well, why didn't you just have a buy it now and just cancel out the best offer? Because I mean, we're getting up there, and I'm like, okay, $30 less. Your offer's been submitted. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
a little higher than I would have wanted to go, but it's something that I know it's nice because again, the guy that collects the Blackhawks and Tabes, he was in there today. I showed that to him. He's like, God, how much did you pay for that? And I was like, it wasn't to me as strong as I thought it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, two other players on this card are not, I'd say, of superstar stature. If you watched hockey in the early or the late '90s, early 2000s, household names for the Devils, Elias and Gomez. I know their stuff doesn't command much of anything.
Yep.
But at the same time, triple auto number to 25 out of I want to say SP Authentic for 150-ish. More than I might probably would have wanted to spend, but it everything with the card, it looks great. It's not, because you have some of those SP Authentic cards in baseball,
Mm-hmm.
where you'll have Griffey. You'll have a great cast of people, but I'm more of the teammates. I want to see Griffey, Martinez, Buhner. I don't want to see Griffey, let's say Ben Grieve, and then Torrey Hunter. I don't, because then on the back you see that it'll be the teal or the aqua. You'll have the Oakland A's, the green, and then Twins. You'll have the red for the pattern or whatever the logos on the back.
Mm-hmm.
This one, back and front works on card, triple auto, no smearing, no streaking, no fading. It's stuff like that where you look, and I didn't have to make a quick decision, but at the same time, I've missed out on stuff recently because I haven't went strong enough, or I've sort of been like, okay, I'm just going to put it on the watch list, hope that the sellers, like, you get that offer that's usually just a generic offer for anybody watching. where it's 10% off or 20% or whatever the number may be. You hope you get that, and it's like, okay, maybe there's a counter there. You work with the counter, or if it's a price you're comfortable with, you just hit it, especially if it's something rare. So I know I've missed the pristine 0304 uncirculated refractor
Mhm.
to 59, and I don't even want to look what that went for, but I know the guy had it up. It was like 235 or 253 American, and he's in Canada, but I don't know what that, maybe 299 ish, somewhere in there, 289. So I don't want to see what that went for, because it's something I'd love to get, but there again, if I'm paying like 150, 170 for something like that, I don't know. It's something I wouldn't mind doing, but that would be like the back end of what I'm trying to pick up. With some of these patches that are one in forever, a triple auto of a Stanley Cup winning team, the key components, it's like I can justify that, or I can at least talk myself into it a lot easier than, not that that pristine refractor doesn't fit what I'm going for.
Yeah,
The
but there's
flat,
a pecking order, Dave. It's
well,
one
that's
of
the thing.
those things where, like,
The flat,
if you've got a big old checklist, there's a lot of stuff that could
mm-hmm.
potentially be awesome to add. There are cool cards that I've passed on for no other reason than I know if I commit the funds to this, if something comes up that is really high in that pecking order, then I'm stretching, then I'm straining myself because the possibility was there. There's certain pieces that are going to command the attention where you're like, hey, hold on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because even in the card we were talking about earlier, the last one that sold on eBay was 2012. It's been a while.
Wow.
That, like, they don't come up all the time. And I knew it was something like that. I wanted to confirm it. I just went on PWCC just to look. March 2012. So it's been over
Wow.
9 years since one has popped up.
Wow.
So it's like, I'm sure there have been like side deals and things like that out there. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
But it's like, not all the time. It's very, very infrequent. So when it shows up and you can pick it up, if it's high enough in the pecking order, and to
Mm-hmm.
me that was one that qualified as it's up there in the pecking order, then you make the move. Then it's like, then you do the Wayne's World. It will be mine. Oh yes. You know, I wasn't going to allow somebody else to swoop in and take it from me. I was going to make the deal work one way or the other. But it's got to be at that level. But but there are a bunch of other ones just like, yeah, it's a rare card. There was a card out of 9 that finished last night. The price was fair, but I'm sitting there like, okay, well, I'm already kind of psychologically committing funds to this other card. So I'm not going to go then and pull the trigger on this other one, which is very reasonably priced. It was out of 9. It's another tough card, but I'm like, it's way far down on the pecking order comparatively. Rare or not, it's rarity isn't everything.
Yeah.
It's what's the most interesting to you.
Very
And that's
true.
those, like the in the game or the be a player. It's got to be a nice emblem, a nice number, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
A lot of I think the 02, 03, 03, 04 copies, it's more of that smaller little oval instead of like the earlier ones where it's that bigger chunk, bigger square. I like those. I will put funds towards those well before, even if they're on auction and we're talking a good price, different story. Buy it now's best offers. I'm looking towards the early stuff,
Mhm.
just because that swatch size is bigger and allows for more diversity amongst the patch, and you can see a lot better. It presents better opposed to like a smaller oval in like the sort of the private stock Pacific grain, where it's a small window and it's there. I know it's there. I can see some colors, but it doesn't do much for me. You've got a generic be a player picture and then a small window.
Mm-hmm.
So there is logic in the brain, but it usually doesn't make it to the fingers, or to, especially when it comes to bidding.
I'm glad we're sitting down.
I know.
This has been a full show of it, Steve. Like, man, this is the night. This is the night I had to run out of liquor. Damn. I would have switched to the Johnny Walker. Jesus, man. I'm gonna drink it straight out of the bottle. To save time.
A veritable cornucopia of jaw-dropping incidences and facts.
And on that note, before we untap more shocking revelations, we do need to save some for future episodes, Dave.
I know.
We may want to go ahead and wrap this one up before it gets way out of hand.
Yeah, it's like we can't have everybody on a Tuesday drinking themselves into a stupor, Dave. There's only so much more we can handle. Our hearts cannot take this. We're not spring chickens anymore.
This is true.
That is an accurate statement.
Yeah, it's like there's only so much we can say, but we can handle on a school night. Kids or not, Dave. Kids or not, it doesn't matter.
The school night. The Tuesday.
That's right.
So with that, thank you, Carlos, accepting the invite, coming on. Everybody in the chat, always love you guys. Coming in, chatting with us, even if it's not geared towards what we say, maybe it is geared towards what we say. It's great just having the banter back and forth, and we can feed off of it. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, sign up for our Patreon, super chat, money orders, well-concealed cash, PayPal, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Ethereum, all accepted now. So get amongst it. Give back to the community like we give back to you.
Goddamn, son, that outro's getting longer and longer. Just milk it for everything it's worth. He actually doesn't want to sleep, guys. It's a lie.
I'll be out within 10 minutes, I bet, of this ending. He's Steve. He's Carlos. I'm Dave. This has been the Instant Revolution podcast. Remember, collecting cards, it's a wonderful hobby. The friendships you forge when you collect these cards, that's what it's really all about. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.